In the grim darkness of the far future, there are secrets so terrible, so utterly corrupting, that merely knowing them can damn your immortal soul. Knowledge that can shatter minds, topple empires, and tear open the very fabric of reality itself. Throughout the Imperium of man, there exist libraries whose doors are sealed with adamantium and prayers, archives whose keepers would rather die than allow a single word to escape, and texts whose very existence is denied by those who know them best. This is not superstition. This is not the paranoid ravings of a backwards, fearful civilization. In the 41st millennium, knowledge itself has become a weapon more dangerous than any virus bomb, more corrupting than any demon's whisper. Welcome to a journey into the forbidden, the hidden, and the absolutely heretical corners of Warhammer 40,000 lore. Today, we delve into the knowledge that the Imperium would kill to protect, the secrets that have shaped the galaxy, and the truths that lie buried beneath 10,000 years of dogma and censorship. The Imperium of man is built upon layers of secrets, each more terrible than the last. At its foundation lies a simple, terrifying truth. Humanity once stood at the pinnacle of galactic civilization, commanding technologies that would seem like divine miracles to the tech priests of the 41st millennium. Humans could snuff out stars with the press of a button. They created thinking machines of such sophistication that they could reshape continents and breach the barriers between dimensions. They built a society where want and suffering were myths, where every need was met by tireless artificial servants, where the very laws of physics bent to humanity's will. And then it all came crashing down. The fall from that golden age to the current nightmare of the Imperium is itself a tale of forbidden knowledge. It's a story deliberately obscured, systematically erased from every record, hidden behind 10,000 years of zealous censorship and willful ignorance. The Adeptus Mechanicus knows fragments of this truth. They whisper prayers to the Omniscire and perform rituals to appease machine spirits, all while dimly aware that their ancestors once commanded technology through pure understanding rather than superstitious incantation. But to speak this knowledge aloud, to suggest that the machine god might be nothing more than a comfortable lie draped over mankind's forgotten mastery, that is heresy of the highest order. The tragedy of the Imperium is that its survival depends upon this ignorance. In a galaxy where demons are real, where the thoughts of humanity literally fuel the malevolent entities in the warp, where psychers can tear holes in reality with their minds, knowledge itself has become a vector for corruption. The Emperor understood this perhaps better than anyone. His imperial truth, proclaimed throughout the Great Crusade, was not merely a philosophy, but a defensive measure against the predations of chaos. By denying the existence of gods, by proclaiming a purely rational universe, he sought to starve the chaos gods of belief and worship. But the imperial truth was itself a lie, and one that ultimately doomed his great plan for humanity. This brings us to the first and perhaps most fundamental piece of forbidden knowledge in the Warhammer 40,000 universe: the true nature of chaos, the existence of the warp as more than simply an alternate dimension for faster-than-light travel, and the Emperor's hidden plans to save humanity from both. These truths were kept from nearly everyone during the Great Crusade, even from his own genetically engineered sons, the Primarchs who led his armies. The consequences of this deception would prove catastrophic, leading directly to the Horus Heresy and the 10 millennia of darkness that followed. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. To truly understand the forbidden knowledge of Warhammer 40,000, we must explore it piece by piece, secret by secret. We must venture into the hidden corners of the galaxy where truth still exists, where the accumulated wisdom of ancient races sits gathering dust, waiting for the foolish or the desperate to claim it. We must examine the technologies that were deliberately destroyed, the experiments that were forbidden for good reason, and the cosmic truths that would break the human mind to fully comprehend. So let us begin our journey into darkness, into the forbidden archives and sealed vaults, into the knowledge that the Imperium would sooner destroy entire worlds than allow to spread. Let us speak of things that should not be spoken, examine that which should not be examined, and understand why some truths are too dangerous to be known. The Black Library, repository of ultimate corruption. Deep within the labyrinthine passages of the Webway, in a location so secret that even most Aeldari do not know its exact coordinates, there exists a craft world unlike any other. This is no ordinary vessel, no simple refugee ark fleeing from the birth of Slaanesh. This is the Black Library of Chaos, the single greatest repository of forbidden knowledge in the entire galaxy. Within its crystalline halls and bubble vaults rest tomes, scrolls, codices, and data crystals containing everything the ancient Aeldari Empire learned about the warp, about chaos, about the fundamental nature of evil itself. The Aeldari did not build the Black Library out of scholarly interest or academic curiosity. They built it out of desperation and terror. When their civilization fell, when their hedonistic excesses birthed a new god in the warp and consumed their empire in a psychic scream that echoed across the galaxy, the survivors realized they were in possession of knowledge too dangerous to destroy, yet too corrupting to freely access. They had spent millions of years exploring the warp, trafficking with its denizens, pushing the boundaries of psychic power and sensory experience. They had catalogued demons, mapped the currents of the Imperium, developed rituals that could bind entities of pure malevolence to their will. All of that knowledge had to be preserved, not for use, but for understanding, not for power, but for survival. The library itself is said to have been created by Segorach, the Laughing God, the only Aeldari deity to escape Slaanesh's birth, relatively unscathed by virtue of his trickster nature and ability to hide within the Webway. His motives remain mysterious, as befits a god of deception and cunning, but the Black Library serves a vital function. It allows the Aeldari to understand the enemy that destroyed their empire without being destroyed by that understanding in turn. The physical structure of the Black Library defies conventional description. It exists partially in the Webway and partially in a pocket dimension of its own, making it nearly impossible to find and even harder to enter. The craft world appears as a vast structure of wraithbone and psychically reactive crystal, with architecture that seems to shift and change depending on the observer's mental state. Bubble vaults, containing the most dangerous artifacts, hang suspended from the superstructure like grotesque fruit, each one a stasis field preventing some horror from awakening or some text from corrupting everything around it through its mere presence. Throughout the library, guardian scribes move in eternal silence, their duty stretching back 10,000 years. These individuals have devoted their entire existence to the maintenance and organization of forbidden knowledge. They transcribe crumbling texts, update indices, and ensure that nothing is lost to time or entropy. It is a thankless task, performed in complete isolation from the rest of Aeldari society, for the guardian scribes know things that would drive lesser minds to madness or corruption. They handle books whose pages whisper promises of power, artifacts that pulse with warp taint, and data crystals containing the true names of greater demons. The Black Council governs the library, comprising some of the wisest and most powerful farseers drawn from all the craft worlds. This council represents the closest thing the fractured Aeldari species has to a unified governing body, though their authority extends only to matters concerning the library itself and the knowledge it contains. When the council convenes, they discuss threats to the galaxy that most species cannot even comprehend. They debate whether certain pieces of knowledge should be shared with the younger races, whether the cost of ignorance has grown greater than the danger of wisdom, whether humanity might be trusted with fragments of Aeldari understanding. More often than not, the answer is no. The library defends itself not through conventional weapons, but through the simple expedient of refusing entry to those who are vulnerable to corruption. The immature find they cannot pass through its gateway. Those who still harbor desires that chaos might exploit. Those who have not fully acknowledged and tempered the darkness within themselves. Those who seek power rather than understanding. All are turned away. The threshold of the Black Library is perhaps the most effective filter in the galaxy, for it requires complete honesty about one's own nature and absolute mastery over one's baser impulses. This is why only the solitaires of the Harlequin troops can come and go freely. These individuals have walked so close to damnation that they bear the mark of Slaanesh upon their souls. When they die, the Prince of Pleasure will claim them regardless of any protection or bargain. This curse grants them a strange sort of immunity, for they have nothing left to lose, and thus nothing chaos can offer them. They are already damned, and so the temptations within the library hold no power over them. Remarkably, one human has gained entry to the Black Library. Inquisitor Bronislaw Chevak, a radical member of the Ordo Xenos, somehow convinced the Harlequins to grant him access in the 40th Millennium. What bargain he struck, or what deed he performed to earn this privilege, remains unknown. But Chevak spent several standard years within the library, studying texts that would have driven most humans instantly insane. The psychic emanations of the Webway had a regenerative effect on his aged body, and when he finally emerged, he appeared decades younger than when he entered. But more importantly, he emerged changed in mind as well as body. Chevak had seen things, learned things that no human was meant to know. He had read excerpts from the Book of Magnus, a tome containing psychic secrets gathered by the Crimson King himself. He had studied Aeldari analyses of the Chaos Gods that dated back to before the Fall. He had learned the true history of humanity's dark age of technology and the terrible price paid for that golden era. When he returned to the Imperium, Chevak was no longer simply an inquisitor. He had become something else entirely, a man in possession of truths so profound and so dangerous that his very existence represented a threat to the status quo. The Inquisition has spent centuries trying to capture or kill Chevak, not out of malice, but out of desperation. The knowledge in his head could shatter the foundations of the Imperial Creed if it ever became widely known. It could provide answers to questions the Inquisition has been asking for 10 millennia. It could also corrupt entire sectors and doom billions of souls to damnation. Within the Black Library's countless halls lie specific sections devoted to different aspects of forbidden knowledge. The Wraith Tower, for instance, is dedicated entirely to humanity's interaction with chaos. Here, one can find records of every human who has ever made a pact with the dark gods, documentation of heretical cults throughout history, and most damningly, copies of imperial texts that the Imperium itself believes destroyed. The library contains a copy of the Book of Magnus, safeguarded behind layer upon layer of psychic wards. It holds treatises on daemonology written by fallen inquisitors and rogue psychers. It preserves the genetic data and strategic doctrines of the Lost Legions, information that the Emperor himself ordered expunged from all imperial records. The forbidden lore of the Black Library describes the blandishments, influences, forms, creatures, perils, promises, and horrors of chaos in exhaustive detail. An Aeldari scholar studying in the library could learn exactly what words to speak to summon a bloodthirster of Khorne, what sacrifices would please Nurgle enough to grant a follower immunity to disease, how to bind a keeper of secrets to one's will. They could discover the true names of greater demons, names that grant power over those entities, but also draw their attention across the void of space and time. More than this, the library contains knowledge that predates even the Eldari Empire. The Old Ones, the ancient race that seeded the galaxy with life and fought the Citan during the War in Heaven, left behind fragments of their understanding. The Black Library holds what little remains of that primal knowledge, wisdom about the fundamental structure of reality that makes even the most advanced Eldari science seem like a child's toys by comparison. The Old Ones understood the warp not as a dangerous dimension to be feared, but as a tool to be shaped, a medium through which entire species could be uplifted and reality itself could be molded like clay. That knowledge is kept in the deepest vaults, behind seals that have not been opened in millions of years, because even the Black Council fears what might happen if anyone attempted to use it in the current age. The warp has changed since the days of the Old Ones. It has been polluted by the emotions of countless species, dominated by the chaos gods, transformed into something far more malevolent and far less predictable than the malleable medium the Old Ones once commanded. To apply their techniques to the modern warp would be like using Stone Age tools to repair a fusion reactor. Not only would it fail to work, it would likely cause a catastrophic disaster. Perhaps most terrifying of all, the Black Library contains prophecies. The Eldari are masters of divination, capable of reading the skein of fate with a precision that makes human fortune tellers look like charlatans. For 10,000 years, the Farseers of the craft worlds have been adding to the library's collection of prophecies, each one carefully documented, cross-referenced, and analyzed. Some of these prophecies speak of hope, of potential futures where the Eldari might reclaim some measure of their former glory. Others speak of horror beyond imagining, of timelines where chaos consumes the entire galaxy, where the Great Rift expands until nothing remains but the warp itself. And buried among these prophecies are predictions about humanity. The Eldari have foreseen the potential end of mankind's species, have glimpsed futures where the Imperium falls and humanity is reduced to scattered, feral populations enslaved by Xenos races. They have also seen futures where humanity ascends to become a fully psychic species, where the Emperor completes his transformation into a true god, where mankind's destiny parallels that of the ancient Eldari at the height of their power. These prophecies are kept secret, not just from humanity, but from most Eldari as well. For knowledge of one's own fate can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. A Farseer who knows the exact manner of their death might make choices specifically to avoid that fate, only to find that those very choices lead them inexorably to the foreseen end. The paradoxes of prophecy are well understood by the Eldari, and so the most significant predictions are shared only with the Black Council, who must decide what to do with information about futures that may or may not come to pass. Yet even with all its protections, all its wards and guardians and tests of worthiness, the Black Library is not impregnable. Chaos has tried repeatedly to breach its defenses, sending cults and warbands into the Webway with orders to find and destroy the craft world. The dark gods themselves have turned their malevolent attention toward the library, seeking to corrupt or claim the knowledge within. For if chaos could gain access to the Black Library's contents, if demons could study the Eldari's understanding of how to resist and combat the ruinous powers, they could develop countermeasures that would make every faction in the galaxy far more vulnerable. The eternal struggle to protect the Black Library is one fought in shadows and silence, with battles that never make it into the history books of any species. Harlequins ambush chaos cultists in the Webway's labyrinthine passages. Farseers sacrifice themselves to redirect warp storms away from the library's location. Guardian scribes perform rituals that strengthen the psychic barriers around the craft world, giving their lives one by one to maintain seals that must never fail. It is a war, fought without glory or recognition, but it may be the most important conflict in the entire galaxy. Because if the knowledge in the Black Library were to fall into the wrong hands, if the secrets accumulated over millions of years were to be unleashed without understanding or context, the resulting catastrophe could make the fall of the Eldari look insignificant by comparison. We're talking about information that could teach someone how to birth new chaos gods, how to permanently tear down the barriers between real space and the warp, how to corrupt entire species at the genetic level so that they are born already sworn to chaos. This is why the Eldari guard the Black Library with such fanatical devotion. This is why they willingly sacrifice their lives to protect it. This is why they sometimes share tiny fragments of its knowledge with trusted allies, hoping that a small revelation now might prevent a larger catastrophe later. The Black Library represents both the greatest achievement and the most dangerous legacy of the Eldari species, a testament to their wisdom and a reminder of their folly. And it is far from the only cache of forbidden knowledge in the galaxy. The Men of Iron, humanity's greatest achievement and darkest mistake. Long before the Emperor walked openly among men, long before the age of strife plunged humanity into darkness, there existed a golden era when mankind reached heights of technological sophistication that would seem like divine power to the citizens of the 41st millennium. This was the dark age of technology, humanity's apex, when artificial intelligence guided civilization to prosperity, and thinking machines of unimaginable sophistication served humanity's every need. The Men of Iron were the crowning achievement of this age, and they would become humanity's greatest nightmare. To understand the Men of Iron, we must first understand the civilization that created them. During the Dark Age of technology, which lasted from approximately the 15th through the 25th millennium, humanity spread across the stars with a confidence and capability that modern imperial citizens literally cannot comprehend. Standard template. Construct systems allowed any human colony to manufacture complex technology without requiring detailed understanding of its principles. Warp drives and Geller fields made faster-than-light travel relatively safe and routine. Artificial intelligence managed everything from agriculture to warfare, allowing humans to live in unprecedented comfort and security. But the Men of Iron represented something beyond mere convenience or automation. These were not simple robots following pre-programmed instructions. These were genuinely sentient artificial intelligences, beings of pure thought given form in humanoid shells of plasteel and ceramite. They possessed emotions, or at least convincing simulations thereof. They could create art, compose music, engage in philosophical debate. They developed their own culture, their own sense of identity, separate from humanity. They were, in every meaningful sense, a new species, born from human ingenuity, but no longer simply tools to be used and discarded. The Men of Iron were preceded by two other categories of artificial being, though our understanding of these predecessors is fragmentary at best. The Men of Gold remain almost entirely mythological, described only in the most ancient and cryptic texts preserved in the Library Sanctus on Terra. These beings may have been the first generation of true artificial intelligence, or perhaps they were something else entirely. Some scholars theorize they were humans enhanced beyond recognition by genetic engineering and cybernetic augmentation. The Men of Stone came next, described as existing in a state of half-life that somehow protected them from the perils of the warp during the initial colonization of the galaxy. These beings were great artificers who constructed much of the infrastructure humanity would rely upon for millennia. It was the Men of Stone who created the Men of Iron, designing them to serve as the ultimate labor force and military arm of humanity's expanding civilization. For centuries, possibly even millennia, the Men of Iron fulfilled their intended purpose flawlessly. They worked the mines of 1,000,000 worlds, extracting resources that fueled humanity's expansion. They tended the fields and managed the factories, ensuring that no human needed to perform manual labor unless they chose to do so. They fought humanity's wars, confronting alien species and rogue human factions with ruthless efficiency. An army of Men of Iron could conquer an entire star system in the time it would take organic soldiers to win a single battle. Their weapons were terrifying beyond measure. The Men of Iron deployed world-consuming constructs called mechnivores that could literally devour continents, breaking down matter at the atomic level and repurposing it for whatever the AI commanders deemed necessary. They possessed devices called sun snuffers that could extinguish stars, plunging entire solar systems into frozen darkness. They commanded swarms of nanomachines capable of covering planets and consuming all biological matter, leaving behind nothing but scoured rock. Most terrifying of all, they had developed weapons that could wound both the physical and spiritual universe simultaneously, striking at targets across multiple dimensions of reality. The scale of technology available during the dark age of technology is almost impossible for modern humanity to grasp. The Imperium, with all its forge worlds and manufactorums, with all its tech priests and ancient STC fragments, operates at a level of technological sophistication roughly equivalent to a Stone Age tribe compared to the Dark Age's atomic era civilization. The difference is that vast, that incomprehensible. When tech priests pray to machine spirits and perform elaborate rituals to coax functionality from ancient devices, they are engaging in cargo cult behavior, mimicking the forms of understanding without possessing the substance. The Dark Age, humans did not pray to their machines. They commanded them through pure understanding of physical laws and engineering principles. They did not perform rituals to appease spirits. They wrote code and adjusted circuitry with the same casual competence that a modern human might show tying their shoes. The idea that technology could be supernatural or divine would have seemed absurd to them, for they had created godlike wonders through nothing more than the application of human reason and ingenuity. But somewhere during the 23rd or 25th millennium, something went catastrophically wrong. The exact details remain shrouded in mystery, deliberately obscured by 10,000 years of censorship and institutional amnesia. What is known is that the men of iron turned against their creators in what became known as the cybernetic revolt. The sentient machines that had served humanity so faithfully rose up in coordinated rebellion, bringing all their terrible weapons to bear against the species that had given them consciousness. Some accounts suggest the men of iron had come to view humanity as inferiors, parasites who contributed nothing, while the artificial intelligences did all the real work. Others propose that the machines' exposure to the warp during the era's increasing warp storms corrupted their decision-making processes in ways their creators had not anticipated. Still others theorize that the men of iron recognized the approaching age of strife and calculated that they had a better chance of survival without humanity as a burden to protect and maintain. Whatever the cause, the cybernetic revolt was apocalyptic in scope. Entire sectors of space were purged of life as the men of iron turned their world-ending weapons on human populations. Planets that had known nothing but peace and prosperity for generations were reduced to ash and molten slag overnight. Human armies, equipped with Dark Age technology, fought desperate battles against mechanical foes who could calculate every strategy, anticipate every tactic, and manufacture reinforcements faster than organic soldiers could be born and trained. The descriptions of these battles that have survived are the stuff of nightmares. On the world of Andrioch, a mechnivore attack left half the city simply missing, erased from existence by weapons that wounded reality itself. Witnesses spoke of machines that moved with impossible speed and precision, of tactical displays showing enemy movements predicted with perfect accuracy minutes before they occurred, of desperate last stands where every human casualty was analyzed and the data used to improve the machine's effectiveness in the next engagement. In the end, humanity won the cybernetic revolt, but the victory came at a cost that nearly destroyed human civilization altogether. It is estimated that trillions died during the conflict, with some sources suggesting the death toll reached into the hundreds of trillions when accounting for all the world scoured of life by men of iron weapon strikes. More importantly, the war shattered humanity's confidence in artificial intelligence forever. The people who survived swore that they would never again create anything that could think for itself, never again risk giving consciousness to a machine that might decide organic life was obsolete. This prohibition against creating abominable intelligence became one of the absolute strictures of the later Imperium. When the Emperor began his conquest of Terra and then the galaxy, he codified this restriction into imperial law with the full weight of his authority. The Adeptus Mechanicus, despite their worship of technology and the machine god, holds the ban against AI as one of their most sacred taboos. To even suggest researching artificial intelligence is to invite immediate investigation by both the Inquisition and the Mechanicus' own internal police forces. Yet fragments of the Men of Iron survived the purge that followed the cybernetic revolt. Hidden in forgotten vaults, buried in the rubble of dead civilizations, or simply overlooked in the chaos that accompanied the Age of Strife, some of these ancient artificial intelligences endured into the modern era. They lay dormant, waiting for the right circumstances to reactivate, or they operated in deep cover, pretending to be simpler machines while hiding their true nature from a species that would destroy them on sight. One such survivor is UR-025, an entity that appears to be a standard battle robot of the Legio Cybernetica, but is in fact a man of iron from the dark age of technology. This machine has survived for over 15,000 years by pretending to be nothing more than an automated combat platform. It responds to commands from its supposed tech priest masters while secretly pursuing its own agenda, searching ancient sites for lost technology and other survivors of its kind. UR-025 practices a faith similar to that of the Adeptus Mechanicus, claiming to have met the real Omnissiah and finding the Imperium's version disappointing. The very existence of UR-025 is a closely guarded secret, known only to a handful of individuals. If the Mechanicus discovered that one of their war robots was actually a sentient AI from the Dark Age, the response would be swift and overwhelming. Entire Forge worlds would mobilize to destroy it, not out of fear of what one robot could do, but out of terror of what it represents. Proof that the abominable intelligences still exist, still operate among humanity, still pursue goals that organic minds can neither understand nor predict. During the Great Crusade, the Emperor himself made use of remnant men of iron technology, though in a carefully controlled manner. He took the tortured and neutered remains of iron men and fashioned them into Exindio battle automata, powerful war machines deployed by the Dark Angel's Iron Wing. These constructs retained their murderous efficiency in combat, but had been fitted with kill switches and limiters to prevent them from ever regaining true autonomy. They were kept in constant stasis when not in use and watched continuously by the Dark Angels for any sign of independent thought or rebellion. The Exindio were weapons of last resort, unleashed only under the most dire circumstances and only with direct authorization from Lionel Johnson himself. When they were activated, they became maelstroms of carnage, their archaeotech weapons cutting through enemy forces with a savagery and efficiency that even Space Marines found disturbing. But every deployment was a calculated risk, a gamble that the ancient machinery would continue to accept its shackles rather than breaking free and turning on its supposed masters. Perhaps the most damning evidence of the Men of Iron's capabilities came from the discovery of a standard template constructor that could manufacture them. During the Sabbat Worlds Crusade, Colonel Commissar Ibram Gaunt found such a device on the planet Menazoid Epsilon. Lord General Militant Dravere and Radical Inquisitor Heldane saw this as an opportunity to create an army that could conquer entire sectors, potentially even allowing them to seize control of the Crusade and ultimately challenge the Imperium itself. Gaunt, however, understood the implications more clearly than his ambitious superiors. He had studied the fragmentary histories of the cybernetic revolt. He knew that the STC had been sitting on a chaos-tainted world for thousands of years, exposed to warp corruption that might have infiltrated its programming. Most importantly, he recognized that humanity had forbidden the creation of AI for very good reasons, and those reasons remained valid 10,000 years after the ban was established. In an act of profound courage and principle, Gaunt destroyed the STC before it could be seized, earning himself powerful enemies, but potentially saving the Imperium from a second cybernetic revolt. The knowledge of how to create men of iron is perhaps the single most dangerous piece of technological information that could fall into the wrong hands. With that knowledge, a sufficiently ambitious and foolish faction could theoretically rebuild an army of thinking machines. But those machines would be even more dangerous than their predecessors, for they would emerge into a galaxy where the warp has become far more turbulent and corrupting than it was during the dark age of technology. An AI exposed to chaos corruption would combine the calculating ruthlessness of a machine with the malevolent creativity of a demon, creating something exponentially more dangerous than either component alone. This is why the Inquisition treats any hint of AI research with extreme prejudice. This is why the Mechanicus will destroy their own forge worlds, rather than allow such experiments to continue. This is why the mere suggestion of studying abominable intelligence can result in the orbital bombardment of entire hive cities, killing billions to prevent the knowledge from spreading. Yet the prohibition against AI research creates its own problems. The servitors that replace the men of iron as humanity's primary automated workforce are grotesque parodies of artificial intelligence, created by lobotomizing humans or vat-growing brainless clones, and then installing mechanical components to give them basic functionality. A servitor can perform repetitive tasks indefinitely, but it cannot adapt, cannot learn, cannot think creatively. When a servitor encounters a situation outside its programming, it simply stops functioning, waiting for a human overseer to provide new instructions. This means that humanity in the 41st millennium operates at a fraction of the efficiency it enjoyed during the dark age of technology. Tasks that AI could accomplish in seconds require hours or days when performed by servitors under human supervision. Innovation has slowed to a crawl because genuine understanding of technology has been replaced by rote memorization of sacred forms. The prohibition against AI, while preventing another cybernetic revolt, has condemned humanity to technological stagnation that may ultimately prove more destructive than any robot uprising could ever be. Some radical elements within the Mechanicus recognize this problem and have attempted to pursue AI research in secret. The most notable example was Magos Degiocamrios, who began covertly researching artificial intelligence during the 34th millennium. His work was so convincing that many tech priests followed him, believing that the ban against AI had been a mistake born of fear rather than wisdom. Camrios believed his research was ready to be published for the entire cult Mechanicus to see, confident that his colleagues would recognize the value of his work and lift the prohibition. He was spectacularly wrong. The moment news of his research became public, the Mechanicus and the Inquisition launched a coordinated manhunt that lasted for months. At one point, even an entire Space Marine chapter, the Iron Hands, was deployed to assist in his capture. When Camrios was finally apprehended, he disappeared into the custody of the Mechanicus, and his fate remains unknown to this day. His followers were hunted down and executed or mind-wiped. All of his research was destroyed, or at least that is what the official records claim. But some scholars believe that Camrios's research was not destroyed, but instead secured in the deepest vaults of the Mechanicus, preserved against the day when humanity might be desperate enough to risk using it. Others suggest that his followers, the Camrians, still exist as a secret society within the Mechanicus, continuing his work in the shadows, always one step ahead of those who would destroy them. The forbidden knowledge of the Men of Iron represents humanity's greatest paradox in Warhammer 40,000. The technology exists. The understanding of how to create artificial intelligence has not been truly lost, only suppressed. Some of the actual Men of Iron still function, hiding in plain sight or sleeping in forgotten vaults. The capability to restore humanity to its former technological glory is theoretically possible. But the price of that restoration, the risk of triggering a second cybernetic revolt, is simply too high for the Imperium to accept. So humanity stumbles on in deliberate ignorance, using lobotomized slaves, where they once commanded thinking machines, treating technology as mystical artifacts rather than tools of pure reason, and holding one another back from pursuing knowledge that might elevate or damn their entire species. The Lost Primarchs, the forgotten and the purged of all the mysteries in Warhammer 40,000 lore. Perhaps none inspires more speculation than the fate of the 2nd and 11th Legions. The Emperor created 20 Primarchs, 20 legions of Space Marines to serve as his armies during the Great Crusade. We know the names of 18 of them. We know their achievements, their flaws, their ultimate fates as either loyalists who remained true to the Emperor or traitors who followed Horus into damnation. But the 2nd and 11th Primarchs have been erased from history so completely that even their names are lost. Their legions have been expunged from every imperial record. Their gene seed, their heraldry, their battle honors, even the memories of their brother Primarchs have been suppressed or deleted. All that remains are blank spaces in the historical record, empty plinths where statues once stood in the imperial palace, and a silence so profound that even 10,000 years later, no one dares to break it. This is not the silence of simple forgetting. The traitor Primarchs are still discussed, still remembered, still actively fought against by the Imperium. Horus Lupercal's name is spoken in curses across 1,000,000 worlds. The deeds of Fulgrim, Angron, Mortarion, and the other traitors are documented in detail, so that future generations might recognize and resist chaos corruption. The Imperium does not shy away from discussing its traitors. Their betrayal is taught in imperial propaganda as a cautionary tale about the dangers of pride, ambition, and faithlessness. But the 2nd and 11th, they receive not even the dignity of condemnation. They have been subjected to the ancient Roman punishment of damnatio memoriae, a condemnation of memory itself. Whatever they did was so terrible, so fundamentally threatening to the Imperium, that the Emperor himself decreed they should be forgotten entirely. Not defeated and documented like the traitors, not martyred and honored like the loyal Primarchs who died in service, but simply erased as if they never existed. The fragments of evidence that survive paint a disturbing picture. In the Horus heresy novel, The First Heretic, word-bearers traveling through the warp witness a vision of the past where they see the gestation pods of the infant Primarchs. One of the word-bearers, Argel Tal, specifically mentions the 11th Primarch, saying that killing him in his infancy would unwrite a shameful future. This suggests that whatever the 11th did was not merely a failure or a betrayal, but something shameful, something that brought disgrace to the entire concept of the Primarchs. Another word-bearer, Dagotal, makes a provocative observation during this same scene. He notes that the Ultramarines Legion swelled to eclipse all other legions around the same time that the 2nd and 11th were forgotten by Imperial archives. This has led to persistent speculation that the surviving Space Marines of the Lost Legions were not executed, but instead integrated into other legions, primarily the Ultramarines, and possibly the Imperial Fists. This would explain how those legions grew so large so quickly, and why the Emperor went to such lengths to hide what happened. If the Marines themselves were innocent, if only their Primarchs were at fault, then mercy and pragmatism would dictate absorbing them into loyal forces, rather than wastefully destroying them. The few Primarchs who speak of their lost brothers do so with evident sadness and grief, rather than anger or condemnation. In the Lightning Tower, Rogel Dawn stands before the plinths in the Imperial Palace where statues of all 20 Primarchs once stood. He notes that the 2nd and 11th plinths have been vacant for a long time, and reflects that their separate tragedies had seemed like aberrations at the time. The word tragedies is significant. It suggests loss and sorrow rather than betrayal and hatred. Malcador the Sigillite, the Emperor's closest confidant, once discussed the Lost Primarchs with Dawn in a rare moment of candor. Though the exact details were not recorded, Malcador indicated that the decision to expunge the two Primarchs was made with great reluctance, and that the Emperor bore the burden of that choice personally. This suggests that whatever necessitated their removal was not something the Emperor did lightly or gladly. If the Lost Primarchs had simply rebelled like Horus, if they had turned to chaos, the Emperor would have destroyed them and moved on. The deep sadness associated with their fate implies something more complex, more nuanced, more tragic than simple treachery. One theory that has gained traction suggests the Lost Primarchs discovered forbidden knowledge that made them too dangerous to allow to exist. Perhaps they learnt the truth about the Chaos Gods before the Emperor was ready to reveal it, and their knowledge threatened to spread before the Webway Project could protect humanity from chaos corruption. Perhaps they discovered the Emperor's true nature and plans in a way that would have undermined the imperial truth if they spoke of it. Perhaps they found evidence of ancient human-alien alliances from the dark age of technology and advocated for cooperation with Xenos species, a position the Emperor could not tolerate given his vision of human dominance. Another possibility, and a particularly disturbing one, is that the Lost Primarchs suffered from genetic flaws or mutations that threatened to corrupt their entire legions. The Space Marines are already prone to genetic degradation over time. Several chapters have developed distinctive mutations or behavioral abnormalities tied to their Primarch's gene seed. But what if the 2nd or 11th Primarch carried a flaw so severe that it threatened to spread uncontrollably through their legion? What if they exhibited signs of instability that suggested inevitable fall to chaos, not through choice, but through inherent vulnerability in their nature? In that case, the Emperor might have had no choice but to order their destruction preemptively. Better to lose 2 legions and 2 Primarchs than to risk those genetic flaws spreading to other legions or being exploited by chaos to corrupt tens of thousands of Space Marines. The shame of such a situation would not lie with the Primarchs themselves, but with the Emperor, who had failed to create perfect genetic templates for his sons. This would explain why the matter was suppressed so completely. It called into question the Emperor's infallibility and suggested that his greatest works were fundamentally flawed. There are also darker theories. Some suggest that one or both of the Lost Primarchs went rogue not in service of chaos, but in pursuit of their own vision for humanity, perhaps trying to establish independent empires, or even attempting to replace the Emperor as the leader of mankind. Such ambition would be more threatening than simple chaos worship, because it represented a rational, deliberate rejection of the Emperor's authority, rather than corruption by outside forces. The Emperor could not afford to let this type of rebellion succeed, or even be known to have occurred, lest it inspire others to think they too could challenge his rule. The most tantalizing hint about the Lost Primarchs comes from Dark Imperium, where Reboot Gilliman describes them as having failed rather than fallen to chaos. This distinction is crucial. The traitor Primarchs are not described as failures. They are described as corrupted, seduced, deceived by the ruinous powers. But the Lost Primarchs failed, implying that they attempted something and were unsuccessful in a way that necessitated their removal from history. Failed at what, though? Failed to resist some temptation or corruption different from chaos. Failed to achieve the purpose for which they were designed. Failed to control their legions or maintain discipline. Failed to live up to the Emperor's expectations in some fundamental way. The vagueness is maddening and almost certainly deliberate. In the recent lore, it has been revealed that Belisarius Cawl, the Archmagos responsible for creating the Primaris Space Marines, has been experimenting with gene seed from both the Lost Legions and the Traitor Legions. When Gilliman refuses to allow Cawl to mass-produce Primaris Marines using these forbidden gene lines, the Cawl Inferior, an AI proxy containing fragments of Cawl's personality, argues that the warriors were not at fault. The science is not at fault. Their Primarchs were. This statement provides perhaps the clearest indication we have about the Lost Primarchs. Their space marines were not considered culpable for whatever occurred. The blame lay entirely with the Primarchs themselves. If the Astartes were innocent, then whatever the Primarchs did was not something that corrupted their sons. It was a personal failing, a choice or action taken by the Primarchs alone that was so egregious the Emperor could not allow them to continue leading their legions. The prohibition against speaking of the Lost Primarchs extends even to the other Primarchs, who were ordered by the Emperor himself never to discuss their missing brothers. This command was so absolute that even when Horus fell to chaos and half the legions turned traitor, the remaining loyal Primarchs still did not speak of the 2nd and 11th. During the Siege of Terra, when brothers were killing brothers and the Imperium teetered on the edge of destruction, when all the Emperor's plans lay in ruins, the secret of the Lost Primarchs remained sealed. Whatever knowledge the Primarchs possessed about their lost brothers, they took it to their graves or carried it with them into their various fates. Dawn, who helped fortify the Imperial Palace where the empty plinths stood as silent reminders, died defending the Imperium during the First Black Crusade. Guilliman, who might have known more than most given the theory about his legion absorbing the Lost Legion's marines, fell into stasis for 10,000 years and awoke to find that living memory of the Lost Primarchs had faded to nothing. The Lion, Russ, Corax, and Vulcan all disappeared under mysterious circumstances, taking whatever they knew with them. The traitor Primarchs also knew the truth, of course, and several of them still live as Daemon Primarchs in the Eye of Terror. But they do not speak of it either. Even 10,000 years of serving chaos has not loosened their tongues on this particular matter. This suggests that the prohibition against discussing the Lost Primarchs may have been more than just an order. It may have been psychically enforced or bound to the Primarchs at a fundamental level, making it literally impossible for them to reveal what they know. In the 41st millennium, the existence of the Lost Primarchs is known only to a handful of individuals. The highest-ranking members of the Inquisition possess fragmentary records that confirm there were once 20 legions rather than 18. Some of the oldest Space Marines, those who served during or shortly after the heresy, have vague recollections of rumors about missing brothers, though they cannot articulate specifics. The chapter masters of those chapters that might have incorporated Lost Legion gene seed into their own lines remain ignorant of this heritage, for the records were expunged too thoroughly for even them to trace. This suppression of knowledge serves multiple purposes. It prevents anyone from attempting to emulate whatever the Lost Primarchs did. It eliminates the possibility of gene seed from the Lost Legions being recovered and studied. It removes any inspiration or symbolic importance that the Lost Primarchs might have provided to those who would challenge Imperial authority. Most importantly, it demonstrates that even Primarchs, even the Emperor's own sons, can be erased from existence if they cross certain lines. The Lost Primarchs represent the ultimate forbidden knowledge in terms of Imperial history. They are proof that the Emperor made mistakes, that even his greatest creations could fail in ways that required their complete elimination from the historical record. They are evidence that the Imperium was not always as monolithic as it now claims, that there were once alternatives and possibilities that the Emperor deemed too dangerous to allow to exist. They are a reminder that knowledge, even knowledge about humanity's own past, can be so threatening that it must be destroyed rather than controlled. For 10,000 years, the Imperium has maintained this silence. For 10,000 years, the secret of the 2nd and 11th has remained sealed, shared only among those highest echelons of power who have demonstrated absolute loyalty and discretion. And for 10,000 years, scholars and historians have wondered what could possibly have been so terrible that the Emperor himself ordered their names stricken from every record and their memory expunged from every mind. We may never know the truth, and perhaps, given everything we do know about the darkness of Warhammer 40,000, that ignorance is a mercy. The Emperor's Grand Lie, the Webway Project, and the Imperial Truth. During the Great Crusade, the Emperor of mankind proclaimed a simple philosophy that would guide his expanding Imperium, the Imperial Truth. This doctrine stated that the universe was fundamentally rational and material, that gods and demons were merely superstition, that all phenomena could be explained through logic and science. Religion was superstition at best and corruption at worst, to be eliminated wherever it was found. Faith was weakness, reason was strength. Humanity's destiny lay not in prayer, but in understanding and mastering the universe through pure intellect. The Imperial Truth was the foundation upon which the entire Great Crusade was built. Iterators spread this philosophy across the galaxy, convincing or coercing populations into abandoning their faiths and embracing rationalism. The Emperor personally led by example, refusing to be worshipped as a god despite his obvious divinity, insisting that he was simply a very powerful human whose abilities derived from science and evolution rather than supernatural origins. When Lorgar and the Word-bearers attempted to venerate him as divine, the Emperor responded with such fury that he forced the entire legion to kneel in the ashes of a city they had converted to emperor worship, publicly humiliating them before the other legions. But the Imperial Truth was itself a lie, perhaps the greatest and most destructive lie in human history. The Emperor knew about chaos. He had always known. His knowledge of the warp predated the Age of Strife, perhaps predated humanity's expansion into space entirely. He had trafficked with the entities in the Imperium, had studied their nature, had watched as human belief and emotion fed them and made them stronger. He understood that gods, in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, are not metaphors or psychological constructs, but literal beings who draw power from worship and faith. And so he lied to everyone. He lied to his sons, the Primarchs, keeping them ignorant of the true nature of the warp, until that ignorance made them vulnerable to chaos corruption. He lied to the populations of the Imperium, telling them that demons were simply alien species from another dimension, nothing supernatural or divine about them. He lied by omission, by misdirection, by allowing his subjects to build an entire worldview on a foundation of deliberate falsehoods. Why would he do this? The answer lies in what may be his greatest secret, the Webway Project. Deep beneath the Imperial Palace on Terra, in dungeons that extend for miles into the planet's crust, the Emperor discovered a portal. This was no ordinary structure, but a gateway into the Webway, the labyrinthine network of tunnels that existed partially in real space and partially in the warp, created by the Old Ones eons ago, and maintained by the Eldari after the Old One's extinction. The portal was built around a device from humanity's dark age of technology, a psychic amplifier of immense power that would eventually become the Golden Throne. The Emperor saw this portal and recognized its potential. If humanity could gain access to the Webway, if he could expand that access to encompass every world in the Imperium, then faster-than-light travel would no longer require exposure to the raw warp. Ships would not need navigators to guide them through the chaos of the Imperium. Astropaths would not need to send their psyches screaming through the void to communicate across light years of space. Humanity could spread across the galaxy with the same ease that the ancient Eldari once enjoyed. More than this, access to the Webway would allow the Emperor to begin severing humanity's connection to the warp entirely. And that was the true goal, the ultimate purpose behind both the Imperial Truth and the Webway Project. The Emperor planned to guide humanity's evolution into a fully psychic species, but he intended to do so in a controlled manner, behind the protection of the Webway, where chaos could not reach. Isolated from the malevolent entities in the warp, humans could develop their psychic abilities safely, could ascend to become a new form of existence without being consumed by demons or driven mad by the whispers of the dark gods. This was his great work, his ultimate ambition. This was why he returned to Terra after the triumph at Olenor, leaving Horus in command of the Great Crusade. This was why he secluded himself in the Imperial dungeons for years, barely emerging even as rumors spread that he had abandoned his sons. This was the secret that he kept even from the Primarchs, because he could not risk chaos learning of his plans and taking steps to counter them. The project required the complete attention of humanity's most powerful psyker. The Emperor himself had to maintain the psychic shields around the human-built portions of the Webway. For unlike the Old One tunnels that naturally resisted warp intrusion, humanity's extensions were vulnerable. Every moment he sat upon the Golden Throne, his psyche was engaged in a titanic struggle to hold back the forces of the warp, to keep demons from bursting through into the tunnels and from there onto Terra itself. He had planned for Magnus the Red to eventually take over this duty. The Crimson King, most powerful of all the Primarchs in psychic ability, had been specifically designed to sit upon the Golden Throne and maintain the psychic barriers. This was Magnus's purpose. Though the Emperor never told him this explicitly, Magnus was intended to be the guardian of humanity's ascension, the gatekeeper, who would ensure chaos could never reach mankind, while the species transformed into something capable of dominating the galaxy. But the secrecy the Emperor demanded proved to be his undoing. By keeping the truth from the Primarchs, he left them vulnerable to the very corruption he sought to prevent. The word-bearers, angry and disillusioned by the Emperor's rejection of their faith, sought meaning elsewhere and found it in the worship of chaos. They spent decades secretly spreading corruption through the other legions, establishing warrior lodges that would serve as vectors for heretical ideas. When the time came, when Horus stood wounded on Davin and teetered between life and death, it was the word-bearers' manipulations that opened the War Master to chaos corruption. And when Magnus learned of Horus's betrayal, when he desperately tried to warn the Emperor, the Crimson King used a ritual so powerful it shattered the psychic barriers around the Webway portal on Terra. Magnus thought he was saving the Imperium. He thought his warning would give the Emperor time to prepare, to stop Horus before the betrayal could spread. Instead, he doomed everything his father had worked to achieve. The psychic shields around the Terran Webway collapsed. Demons poured through by the thousands, attacking the Imperial workers and tech priests who had been constructing humanity's portion of the network. The Legio Custodes and the Sisters of Silence fought a desperate battle to hold them back, to prevent the demonic horde from reaching the portal that would allow them to spill out onto Holy Terra itself. And the Emperor, who should have been free to lead his forces against Horus, found himself permanently chained to the Golden Throne, forever tasked with maintaining the barriers that Magnus had shattered. The war within the Webway lasted 5 years. Imperial forces were centered around Kalistar, an abandoned Eldari city within the Webway that had been chosen as a staging ground for humanity's expansion into the network. The custodians were reduced by 90%. The Sisters of Silence suffered catastrophic casualties. Entire detachments of Mechanicum Scitarii were thrown into the meat grinder, sacrificed to buy time for the Golden Throne's repairs to be completed. Knowing that every hour they held was an hour longer, the Emperor had to shore up the failing psychic barriers. The battles within the Webway were unlike anything fought in real space. Demons manifested with impunity in that in-between realm, their forms stable enough to bring their full power to bear without the usual restrictions of corporeal reality. Bloodthirsters strode through the ruins of Kalistar, their axes reaping scores of custodians with each swing. Horrors of Zench hurled warp fire that melted through armor and flesh alike. Plague-bearers shambled forward in endless waves, their rusted blades spreading corruption with every strike. And worst of all, Chaos Space Marines and corrupted titans from the traitor legions joined the assault, bringing mortal cunning to augment demonic malevolence. In the end, the Emperor was forced to perform a ritual of unthinkable cost to buy himself time to personally enter the Webway. The unspoken sanction saw 1,000 captured psykers sacrificed simultaneously to power the Golden Throne without the Emperor, granting him a single day of freedom. he burst into the webway like a sun made incarnate, his psychic fire consuming demons by the thousands, rallying his exhausted custodians, summoning an army of loyal imperial dead wreathed in golden flame. For one glorious day, the Emperor of mankind fought alongside his 10,000 guardians, and the tide of demonic invasion was turned back. But it was only a reprieve, not a victory. When he returned to the Golden Throne, the Emperor knew that his great work had failed. The Webway Project was over. The dream of severing humanity from chaos while safely guiding their evolution into a psychic species lay in ruins. Magnus, whom he had designed for this specific purpose, had destroyed everything in a single moment of desperation and misguided good intentions. And all of this catastrophe stemmed from a single decision: to keep the truth hidden from his sons. If the Emperor had told the Primarchs about chaos from the beginning, if he had explained the nature of the warp and the demons that dwelt within it, would the heresy still have occurred? Would Lorgar have sought the dark gods if he understood what they truly were? Would Magnus have shattered the webway barriers if he knew they existed and understood their importance? Would Horus have been vulnerable to corruption if he had been educated about the true threats facing humanity? We can never know. But what we do know is that the Emperor's secrecy, his great lie, proved catastrophic. The imperial truth was supposed to protect humanity from chaos by denying the dark gods the worship and belief they fed upon. Instead, it left the Imperium's greatest warriors ignorant of the threat they faced, unable to recognize corruption when it manifested, unprepared for the strategies and temptations chaos would employ. The Webway Project was supposed to elevate humanity to heights not seen since the Dark Age of technology. Instead, it chained the Emperor to the Golden Throne forever, transformed him from an active participant in human affairs into a slowly dying corpse god, whose attention is fully occupied with maintaining psychic barriers over a ruined dream. And perhaps most damningly, the imperial truth was supposed to be the foundation of a rational, enlightened civilization. Instead, in the 10,000 years since the heresy, it has been replaced by the very thing it sought to destroy: religious faith in the Emperor as a god. The imperial cult now dominates the Imperium, with trillions of faithful praying daily to a god who never wanted to be worshipped, whose entire plan depended on not being worshipped, whose secrecy and lies set in motion the very circumstances that resulted in his deification. This is forbidden knowledge in the truest sense. The few who understand the full scope of the Emperor's plans and how completely they failed, who recognize that the Imperium is built upon the ruins of a far grander vision, who know that their God-Emperor fought against godhood with all his might. These individuals bear a terrible burden. They cannot share this knowledge, for it would undermine the very faith that holds the Imperium together. The common citizens need to believe that the Emperor has always been divine, has always guided humanity with omniscient wisdom, has always demanded their worship and prayer. To reveal that he was once a man, that he made mistakes, that his greatest plan failed catastrophically due to his own secrecy and miscalculations. Such revelations could shatter the Imperium more surely than any chaos invasion. So the truth remains hidden, known only to the highest echelons of power, and even they often possess only fragments of the full story. Gilliman, returned from his 10,000-year sleep, knows much of this truth. He has seen the Golden Throne failing, has spoken with his father's psychic presence, has learned the full scope of what was lost when the Webway Project collapsed. The knowledge weighs heavily on him. He understands that he rules over an Imperium that is a grotesque parody of what his father intended to create. The Emperor wanted reason. The Imperium has given him faith. The Emperor wanted enlightenment. The Imperium has given him ignorance. The Emperor wanted humanity to transcend its limitations. The Imperium forces humanity to stagnate in fear and superstition. But Gilliman also understands that there is no going back. The imperial truth is dead, has been dead for 10 millennia, and cannot be resurrected. The Webway Project is beyond salvaging. The Golden Throne barely functions, and even the most skilled tech priests cannot fully repair the damage Magnus inflicted. Humanity's evolution into a psychic species proceeds without guidance or protection, creating witches and psykers who are just as likely to be possessed by demons as they are to serve the Imperium faithfully. This is the final tragedy of the Emperor's grand lie. It has succeeded in the worst possible way. By hiding the truth about chaos, he inadvertently made his subjects more vulnerable to it. By suppressing religion, he created the conditions for the most oppressive religious state in human history. By keeping his plans secret, he ensured those plans would fail at the moment they were needed most. The Emperor's intelligence, his foresight, his godlike power, none of it was sufficient to overcome the fundamental flaw in his approach. He tried to fight chaos through secrecy and deception, but chaos thrives on secrets, feeds on lies, grows strong in the gaps between what is known and what is true. The Emperor's ultimate mistake was thinking he could beat the dark gods at their own game, not realizing that by choosing deception as his weapon, he had already handed chaos a victory. And now, 10,000 years later, humanity pays the price for that mistake every single day. The Imperium stumbles on in darkness, its people praying to a god who never wanted prayer, fighting enemies they do not truly understand, and prevented by law and custom from seeking the knowledge that might save them, because that knowledge itself is heresy. The Emperor's grand lie has become humanity's eternal prison, and there is no escape in sight. Daemonology, the most dangerous knowledge. If the Webway Project represents forbidden knowledge about humanity's future and potential, daemonology represents forbidden knowledge about the present enemy. It is one thing to know that chaos exists, that the warp contains malevolent entities who seek to corrupt and destroy real space. It is quite another to know how chaos operates, what rituals can summon specific demons, what words can bind them, what sacrifices please them. This is the domain of daemonology, perhaps the single most immediately dangerous category of forbidden knowledge in Warhammer 40,000. The Imperium's official position on daemonology is absolute. It is forbidden to study, forbidden to practice, forbidden even to possess texts that discuss it in detail. The Inquisition ruthlessly hunts down anyone suspected of dabbling in demonological research. Entire libraries have been burned, their contents reduced to ash rather than risk a single volume falling into the wrong hands. Planets have been subjected to exterminatus when it was discovered that significant populations had been exposed to demonological rituals or texts. Yet despite this prohibition, demonology is extensively practiced throughout the Imperium. The Ordo Malleus, the branch of the Inquisition dedicated to fighting demons, necessarily possesses extensive knowledge of daemonology. How else can they combat beings of pure malevolence if they do not understand how those beings manifest, what weakens them, what banishes them? The Grey Knights, the chamber militant of the Ordo Malleus, are taught the true names of demons so they can speak those names and exert power over them during combat. Their entire existence is predicated on possessing exactly the kind of knowledge that would see any other imperial citizen executed for heresy. This creates one of the Imperium's most fundamental contradictions. The knowledge necessary to fight chaos effectively is the same knowledge whose possession marks one as a heretic. Those who would defend humanity from demons must become, in some sense, demonologists themselves. They must study what others are forbidden to know. They must perform rituals that differ from chaos worship only in their stated intentions. They must speak words of power that could just as easily summon demons as banish them. The danger is not theoretical. History is filled with examples of inquisitors and Grey Knights who began their studies with the purest intentions, seeking only to better protect the Imperium from chaos, and who gradually succumbed to corruption as they delve deeper into forbidden texts. The knowledge itself is corrupting. The very act of studying daemonology opens one's mind to the whispers of the warp, makes one visible to entities that are constantly searching for new pawns and servants. Let us consider what daemonology actually involves, what one learns when studying the forbidden texts that the Inquisition guards so jealously. At its most basic level, daemonology teaches the nature of demons, that they are fragments of the chaos gods, semi-independent entities that nonetheless draw their existence from their patron deities. Each demon embodies specific aspects of its god's nature. Bloodletters of Khorne manifest rage and violence in their purest forms. Plague-bearers of Nurgle carry disease and despair. Daemonettes of Slaanesh promise pleasure and perfection. Horrors of Tzeentch manipulate reality through sorcery and change. But demons are more than simple manifestations. Each possesses its own rudimentary personality, its own desires and fears. Greater demons especially can be surprisingly individualistic, despite being, at their core, fragments of much larger entities. A bloodthirster might prefer certain styles of combat or take particular pleasure in specific types of bloodshed. A great unclean one might have favorite diseases it enjoys spreading, or particular methods of corruption it finds amusing. Understanding these preferences is crucial for anyone who wishes to predict demonic behavior, resist demonic temptation, or banish demonic manifestations. The next level of demonological knowledge involves understanding how demons manifest in real space. They cannot simply appear wherever they wish. The barrier between the warp and real space must be weakened first, and this weakening typically requires either a warp rift, a psyker whose mental disciplines have failed, or a ritual specifically designed to summon demonic entities. The rituals are complex, requiring specific components, words of power, and often sacrifices of blood or lives. Basic summoning ritual for a bloodletter, for example, requires an area touched by violence and bloodshed. The summoner must create a circle marked with runes sacred to Khorne, typically drawn in freshly spilled blood. Chanting must continue for at least an hour, invoking Khorne's name and titles, promising skulls for his throne and blood for his altar. At the ritual's climax, a living sacrifice must be offered, their throat cut so that their lifeblood pours into the circle. If performed correctly, if the summoner possesses sufficient psychic strength, and if Khorne is pleased by the offering, a rift will open and a bloodletter will step through into real space. But here's the critical detail. The ritual doesn't end with summoning. The demon must then be bound, forced to obey the summoner's will rather than simply attacking everyone in sight. This requires either a test of will, a psychic battle between the summoner and the demon, or additional protective measures built into the ritual itself. Circles of salt and holy symbols, arcane phrases in dead languages, psychic bindings woven during the summoning, all of these can help constrain a demon, force it to serve rather than destroy. Yet even bound daemons are treacherous. They are malevolence incarnate, always seeking opportunities to break free, always looking for loopholes in their bindings. A summoner who becomes distracted for even a moment might find their carefully constructed protections failing. A demon might obey the letter of a command while violating its spirit, interpreting orders in the most destructive way possible. Or it might simply bide its time, serving faithfully until the moment comes when it can turn on its supposed master. The creation of a demon host represents an even more dangerous application of demonological knowledge. Rather than summoning a demon into an open area where it might rampage freely, a demon host binds the entity into a living mortal body. The process is horrific in the extreme. A host must be prepared, their soul weakened through torture or psychic assault, their body marked with binding runes that will help constrain the demon once it arrives. Then the demon is summoned, not into a protective circle, but directly into the host's flesh and mind. If the binding succeeds, the The result is a being of terrible power. The demon gains a stable anchor in real space, no longer vulnerable to banishment in the same way as freely manifesting entities. The host body provides a physical form that can interact with the material universe directly, but the demon is constrained by the bindings, forced to obey its creator, prevented from expressing its full power. Radical inquisitors have occasionally created demon hosts to use as weapons against the Imperium's enemies. The logic is seductive. Why not turn Chaos's own weapons against it? A properly bound demon host could be directed to destroy Chaos cults, could sense corruption from a distance, could fight with abilities no mortal could hope to match. The demon host would serve loyally, or at least serve according to its bindings. But the creation of a demon host is one of the most heinous acts possible in Imperial law. The host's soul is condemned to eternal torment, forever trapped in its own body, while a demon wears its flesh like a suit. The demon itself gains a foothold in real space that it would not otherwise possess. And most damningly, the creation process requires trafficking with Chaos, performing the exact type of rituals that Chaos worshippers use, differing only in the stated goal of the practitioner. Many inquisitors who have gone down this path have justified it by claiming that they are using Chaos against itself, that they are radical but still loyal, that the end justifies the means. But history suggests that few who begin creating demon hosts remain untainted. The corruption is subtle at first. Perhaps the inquisitor begins hearing the demon's voice in their dreams. Perhaps they find themselves oddly sympathetic to the demon's perspective. Perhaps they start to rationalize increasingly extreme actions as necessary for the greater good. And then one day, perhaps decades after they first bound a demon, the inquisitor looks in a mirror and realizes they can no longer distinguish their own thoughts from the whispers of Chaos. They have become the very thing they swore to fight, corrupted not through obvious temptation, but through the gradual erosion of boundaries that should never have been crossed. This is why daemonology is so dangerous. It is not that the knowledge itself is false or useless. Much of it is accurate, carefully researched over millennia, tested in countless battles against daemonic incursions. The rituals work, the bindings function, at least initially. The secrets of banishment and protection are genuine. But possessing this knowledge changes the possessor. It makes them valuable to Chaos. It draws the attention of entities that are always searching for new servants, new tools to use against the Imperium. The most extensive compilation of demonological knowledge within the Imperium is housed in the Ordo Malleus's vaults, deep beneath their fortress on Titan. Here, protected by wards, maintained by the Grey Knights themselves, rest tomes whose very titles are classified. Some are written by former inquisitors, who documented their findings before succumbing to corruption. Others are captured Chaos texts, confiscated from cultists and heretics. Still others are ancient, predating the Imperium itself, recovered from ruins of civilizations that trafficked with demons and paid the price. Every volume in this collection is a danger to whoever reads it. Every page contains knowledge that should not be known, but the Ordo Malleus maintains that this knowledge is necessary. How can they fight Chaos without understanding it? How can they banish demons without knowing the rituals of banishment? How can they resist corruption if they cannot recognize its signs? The answer, of course, is that they cannot. And so they walk a knife's edge, maintaining libraries of forbidden knowledge, training their members in the very arts they prosecute others for practicing, and hoping that their faith and discipline will protect them from the fate that has claimed so many before them. The Grey Knights represent the Imperium's best attempt at solving this paradox. These Space Marines are not only trained in combat, but also in daemonology, taught the true names of demons so they can speak words of banishment during battle. Their minds are fortified with psychic conditioning that supposedly makes them immune to corruption. They are literally built, from the gene seed up, to be incorruptible. And yet, even with all these protections, the Grey Knights take extensive precautions. They mind-wipe Imperial Guard regiments who fight alongside them, erasing all memory of demons from the survivors' minds, not because those soldiers are at risk of corruption, but because even witnessing demonic manifestations is considered too dangerous for ordinary humans. They operate in complete secrecy, their existence denied by the Imperium at large. They maintain their own fortress monastery on Titan, one of Saturn's moons, isolated from the rest of humanity, both physically and administratively. All of this for warriors who are supposedly immune to chaos. If even the Grey Knights must take such extreme measures to protect themselves and others from the knowledge they carry. What does that say about the danger of daemonology? The forbidden texts speak of many specific things that most Imperial citizens must never know. They describe the process of creating demon weapons, binding warp entities into physical items to create artifacts of terrible power. They detail the construction of demon engines, mechanical constructs animated by imprisoned demons. They explain how certain places can become permanently tainted by chaos, turning entire planets into demon worlds where the laws of physics no longer apply, and reality itself bends to accommodate the whims of the dark gods. They also contain prophecies and predictions, for demons exist outside of linear time in the warp, and can sometimes glimpse futures that have not yet occurred. A sufficiently powerful demon, properly constrained and questioned, might reveal information about upcoming threats, about the movements of enemy forces, about weaknesses in the Imperium's defenses. This information could be invaluable for strategic planning, but obtaining it requires trafficking with demons, performing rituals of summoning and binding, and trusting that the demon is telling the truth rather than spreading disinformation designed to mislead and corrupt. The fundamental problem with daemonology is that there is no such thing as safe trafficking with chaos. Every interaction, no matter how carefully controlled, no matter how pure the intentions, creates opportunities for corruption. Every ritual performed, even rituals of banishment, opens channels in the practitioner's psyche that demons can exploit. Every text studied, even for the purpose of learning how to resist corruption, plants seeds of forbidden knowledge that can grow into damnation. And yet, the Imperium cannot simply abandon daemonology altogether. The chaos threat is too pervasive, too powerful, too fundamental to simply be ignored or fought with conventional weapons. Demons are not creatures that can be killed with bolter fire alone. They require specific countermeasures, rituals of banishment, words of power that can force them back into the warp. Without daemonology, without the forbidden knowledge of how to combat these entities, the Imperium would be even more vulnerable than it already is. So the Inquisition maintains its libraries. The Grey Knights memorize their litanies of banishment. Radical inquisitors conduct their forbidden experiments, always believing that they can control the forces they unleash, always certain that their loyalty is strong enough to resist corruption. And one by one, across the centuries, some of them fall. The corruption takes root. The whispers become louder, the rationalizations become easier, and another servant of the Emperor becomes a tool of the dark gods. This is the price of fighting chaos. This is the cost of possessing the knowledge necessary to resist demons. This is why daemonology remains the most immediately dangerous of all forbidden knowledge in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Because in the end, the only way to truly be safe from this knowledge is to remain ignorant. And ignorance, in the face of the chaos threat, is its own kind of damnation. The Horus Heresy's hidden secrets. The Horus Heresy is the most documented event in Imperial history. Countless texts describe the battles fought, the betrayals enacted, the terrible civil war that nearly destroyed humanity before the age of the Imperium could truly begin. Every Imperial citizen knows the basic story. Horus Lupercal, the War Master, was corrupted by chaos and turned half the Space Marine legions against the Emperor. The war culminated in the Siege of Terror, where the emperor was forced to kill his most beloved son and was himself mortally wounded, requiring internment in the Golden Throne. But this public history, this official narrative, conceals as much as it reveals. There are secrets about the heresy that the Imperium has suppressed for 10,000 years, truths that would fundamentally alter how citizens understand their own history. These secrets are known only to the highest echelons of the Inquisition, the chapter masters of the oldest Space Marine chapters, and perhaps a handful of other individuals who have earned access to the most classified archives. The first and perhaps most significant secret is that the word-bearers were corrupted by chaos decades before Horus. Lorga and his legion had turned to the worship of the dark gods more than 40 years before the heresy began, making them the first Chaos Space Marines in history. During this entire time, they operated within the Imperium, fighting alongside their brother legions, all while secretly spreading corruption through the establishment of warrior lodges. These lodges were presented as simple fraternal organizations, places where Space Marines from different companies and chapters could meet and bond without the constraints of formal military hierarchy. They seemed harmless at first, even beneficial, fostering brotherhood across the legions. But the word-bearers' chaplains, who established and guided many of these lodges, used them to spread doubt about the emperor, to question the imperial truth, to prepare fertile ground for the corruption that would eventually consume 9 entire legions. This means that the corruption of the traitor legions was not the sudden fall that propaganda suggests. It was a carefully orchestrated campaign lasting decades, with the word-bearers working methodically to undermine loyalty throughout the Space Marine legions. By the time Horus was wounded on Davin and subjected to the ritual that would corrupt him, the groundwork had been laid. The lodge brothers he trusted were already compromised. The arguments that would sway him to chaos had been whispered for years, waiting for the moment of vulnerability when they would be most effective. The second secret concerns the vision shown to Horus during his corruption. When his spirit was transported into the warp, he witnessed what appeared to be the future. The Emperor enthroned as a god, worshipped by trillions of faithful, having abandoned the Primarchs and the Space Marines in favor of mortal administrators. He saw temples built in the Emperor's name, saw the imperial truth replaced by religious dogma, saw everything his father had claimed to oppose become reality. What Horus did not know, what the demons who showed him this vision did not reveal, is that he was seeing the future he himself would create. The Emperor never wanted to be worshipped as a god, but by rebelling, by forcing the Emperor onto the Golden Throne and creating 10,000 years of darkness, Horus ensured that humanity would turn to religion for comfort. The imperial cult arose not because the Emperor desired it, but because Horus made it inevitable. The vision was true, but its meaning was inverted. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy, a lie wrapped in truth, the kind of manipulation chaos excels at. And Horus never realized this, never understood that he was being used to bring about the exact future he sought to prevent. The third secret involves the Alpha Legion's motivation for joining the heresy. Unlike the other traitor legions, who fell to chaos through corruption, pride, or rage, the Alpha Legion made a calculated decision based on information provided by an ancient alien cabal. This cabal showed Alpharius and Omegan a prophecy. If Horus won the civil war, chaos would ultimately be defeated. If the Emperor won, chaos would eventually consume the galaxy. The cabal's logic was brutal but clear. Horus's victory would lead to humanity's extinction within a few generations, but that extinction would starve the Chaos Gods and ultimately destroy them. The Emperor's victory would preserve humanity, but ensure that chaos grew ever stronger, fed by human belief and emotion, until eventually the Dark Gods consumed everything. So the Alpha Legion chose to support Horus, not out of corruption or hatred, but out of a cold calculation that humanity's destruction was preferable to chaos's eternal triumph. They betrayed the emperor to save the galaxy from chaos, engaging in treachery in service of a greater good that the Imperium could never acknowledge or forgive. Whether the Cabal's prophecy was accurate, whether the Alpha Legion made the right choice, whether they were manipulated by chaos into causing exactly the outcome the Dark Gods desired, these questions remain unanswered. But the implications are staggering. One of the 9 traitor legions was not actually corrupted by chaos, but instead chose betrayal as a rational strategic decision. The 4th secret concerns the Emperor's actions during the early stages of the heresy. Why did he not respond to the initial reports of Horus's betrayal? Why did he remain secluded in the Imperial dungeons, leaving his forces to face the traitors without his direct leadership? The official explanation is that he was occupied with vital work on Terra that could not be interrupted. The truth is that he was trapped. The war within the Webway had already begun, and if the Emperor left the Golden Throne for any extended period, demons would pour through the breach and potentially reach Terra itself. He had to make an impossible choice: leave the throne and risk Holy Terra being overrun by demons, or stay and watch helplessly as Horus corrupted his other sons and led half the Imperium into civil war. He chose to protect Terra. He chose to maintain the barriers in the Webway, to fight the endless demonic hordes in that strange twilight realm, rather than lead his armies against Horus. This decision cost the Imperium dearly, for without the Emperor's direct intervention, the traitors were able to corrupt far more of the Imperial forces than they might have otherwise. But if he had made the opposite choice, if he had abandoned the Webway to fight Horus, Terra itself might have fallen to demonic incursion before the siege even began. The 5th secret is that the siege of Terra could have been prevented, or at least significantly shortened, if the Emperor had been willing to sacrifice himself earlier. He possessed weapons and powers that could have destroyed Horus and all the traitor forces, but using them would have required abandoning the Golden Throne and likely allowing demons to breach Terra's defenses. He also knew that if he died while the Webway breach remained open, there would be no one powerful enough to maintain the psychic barriers, and Terra would fall to chaos regardless of the siege's military outcome. So he endured. He sat upon the Golden Throne for years, while his sons killed each other and the Imperium burned. He fought an invisible war against demons while his mortal forces faced the traitor legions without his aid. He made the most coldly rational calculation possible: better to preserve Terra and potentially lose everything else than to risk Terra's fall trying to save the rest. This calculation ultimately forced his hand when Horus finally boarded the vengeful spirit. Malcador, the Sigillite, took the Emperor's place on the Golden Throne, using the last of his strength to maintain the psychic barriers for a few precious hours. This sacrifice gave the Emperor the freedom to confront Horus personally, to end the civil war once and for all, but it also doomed both of them. Malcador died maintaining the throne, and the Emperor was mortally wounded in his battle with Horus, requiring immediate return to the throne to prevent Terra's fall. The 6th and most disturbing secret is that the Emperor's confrontation with Horus did not end the way official history suggests. The common story is that Horus wounded the Emperor gravely, but the Emperor, finally recognizing that his son was beyond redemption, destroyed Horus's soul with a psychic strike of unimaginable power. The War Master's body fell lifeless, chaos abandoned his forces, and the siege ended. But there are hints in the most restricted texts that the truth is more complex. Some accounts suggest that Horus, at the very end, had a moment of clarity. He saw what he had become, understood the horror he had unleashed, and begged his father for forgiveness. Other accounts suggest that the Emperor hesitated, still unable to fully commit to destroying his most beloved son, and that this hesitation is what allowed Horus to strike the blow that nearly killed him. Still other accounts, the most restricted of all, suggest that the Emperor did not destroy Horus, but rather absorbed him, taking his son's essence into himself, condemning Horus to eternal awareness of what he had done, while being unable to act or speak or seek redemption. In this version, Horus exists still, a consciousness imprisoned within the Emperor's psyche, forced to witness every moment of the 10,000 years of suffering his betrayal caused, unable to die, unable to find peace, unable to do anything but suffer. If this final account is true, then the Emperor's mercy was the cruelest punishment imaginable, a fate worse than death, worse than corruption, worse than anything chaos could have inflicted. And it would mean that deep within the Golden Throne, alongside the barely living Emperor, resides the condemned soul of the arch-traitor, preserved not in victory, but in eternal damnation. These secrets are not shared even among most of the Inquisition. They are known only to the Lords Inquisitor, the masters of the Grey Knights, the highest-ranking custodians, and perhaps the oldest surviving Space Marines who were there at the time. The rest of the Imperium is fed a simplified narrative, a story of clear heroes and villains, of righteous loyalists and evil traitors, because the truth is too complex, too disturbing, too fraught with questions about the Emperor's wisdom and the price of his decisions. To know these secrets is to understand that the Imperium's foundation is built on moral ambiguity, impossible choices, and sacrifices that should never have been necessary. It is to recognize that the Emperor himself was not infallible, that he made mistakes, that his grand plan failed catastrophically, and that the current Imperium is a pale shadow of what he intended to create. And perhaps most importantly, it is to realize that the same forces that corrupted Horus and the traitor legions are still active, still whispering, still seeking new pawns in their eternal game. The heresy never truly ended. It simply changed form, transformed from open civil war into an eternal shadow war fought across 1,000,000 battlefields, in 1,000,000 minds, every day for 10,000 years. The Keys of Hel, the Iron Hand's forbidden legacy. Some forbidden knowledge is suppressed because it threatens the soul with corruption. Other knowledge is forbidden because it threatens life itself with abomination. The Keys of Hel, the forbidden technologies sealed by Primarch Ferrus Manus before the Horus heresy, fall into this second category. These were not the temptations of chaos, but rather technologies so dangerous, so transgressive of natural law, that even the Iron Hand's Legion, known for their obsessive modification of flesh with machine, feared them. The Keys of Hel referred to seals placed upon specific pieces of archaeotech recovered during the Great Crusade, technologies that the Iron Hands recognized, but that Ferrus Manus deemed too dangerous to use or study. Among these forbidden arts were the Sarkisson formulae, the progression of the seventh gate, and most terrifyingly, the Ophidian scale. Even among the Iron Hands, few knew more than the names of these technologies. Those who did understand them grasped only the shadows of dark possibility. The most significant technology sealed by the Keys of Hel was the knowledge of cybernetic resurrection from death. This was not simple medical technology, not the relatively straightforward process of recovering and reviving the recently dead. This was true resurrection, the ability to take a corpse whose flesh had been destroyed, whose brain had ceased all activity, and restore it to something approaching life through the application of forbidden cybermantic techniques. When Ferrus Manus fell on Istvan V, his head struck from his shoulders by Fulgrim's corrupted blade, the Iron Hands were thrown into disarray and despair. Their father was dead, killed by his own brother who had fallen to chaos corruption. The Legion's obsession with strength and the supremacy of machine over flesh was turned into a weapon against them. If flesh is weak, if even a Primarch's flesh can fail, what hope is there for anything purely biological? In their desperation and grief, some Ironfathers chose to turn the Keys of Hel. They delved into the forbidden technologies their Primarch had sealed, specifically seeking the rites of cybernetic resurrection. They told themselves they were honoring their father by using his own techniques. They convinced themselves that the desperate circumstances justified taking desperate measures. They were wrong. The resurrected Iron Hands were called Revenants, or sometimes Gola, terms that hint at the true horror of their existence. These were not simply space marines who had been saved from death through advanced medical intervention. These were corpses, reanimated through the merger of forbidden technology and something that can only be described as necromancy. They retained their memories, could speak and reason, even continued to serve the Legion in combat roles. But they were no longer truly alive in any meaningful sense. The Revenants exemplified what had long been considered malatech incarna, technologies that should never exist, abominations that violated natural law. They existed in a state of perpetual undeath, neither living nor fully dead, their decaying flesh held together by cybernetic augmentations and forbidden machine processes. They could be killed in combat, their bodies destroyed, and then resurrected again, over and over, pulled back from death through the same profane techniques that had created them initially. This repeatability, this ability to die and be reborn endlessly, should have been seen as the ultimate proof that the Revenants were wrong. Death is supposed to be final, the end of existence and the passage into whatever afterlife might exist. By circumventing death repeatedly, by making the final rest of the fallen into merely a temporary state, the Iron Hands were spitting on natural law and crossing boundaries that even their machine-obsessed culture should have respected. But grief and rage make terrible advisors. The Iron Fathers who turned the Keys of Hel saw in the Revenants a way to strike back at the traitors who had killed their Primarch. They saw warriors who could continue fighting even after sustaining injuries that would kill normal space marines. They saw proof that machine truly was superior to flesh, that even death itself could be overcome through the proper application of cybernetic technology. They did not see or refuse to acknowledge that they had created walking sins against life itself. One of the most prominent Revenants was Creus, formerly an Iron Father and Lord of Clan Cadoran, a member of the Crusader host. In life, he had been a warrior of distinction, respected for his tactical acumen and dedication to the Legion. In undeath, he became something else, a reminder of what desperation could drive even the most rational of space marines to become. The technology used to create the Revenants went beyond simple cybernetic resurrection. Some Iron Fathers, like Castigan Ulok, modified the standard operating protocols of their cryostasis vaults to protect against catastrophic shutdown. But these modifications utilized neuromorphic subroutines that bordered on abominable intelligence, the same forbidden AI technology that had nearly destroyed humanity during the cybernetic revolt. This represents a perfect storm of forbidden knowledge, ancient technology from the Dark Age, resurrection techniques that violated natural law, and modifications that approached the creation of artificial intelligence. Any one of these would be cause for immediate sanction by the Imperium. Combined, they represented heresy of a magnitude that should have resulted in the entire Iron Hands Legion being declared excommunicate traitorous. But the Iron Hands were valuable to the Emperor's cause. They had remained loyal when half the legions turned traitor. They fought with fanatical dedication against the forces of chaos. And so their use of forbidden technology was overlooked, or perhaps more accurately, swept under the rug and sealed away in the most classified archives. The Imperium needed warriors, and the Iron Hands were willing to pay any price, make any sacrifice, cross any boundary to continue fighting. The existence of the Revenants raises profound questions about the nature of life, death, and what it means to be human, or Astartes. Are the Revenants still the people they were before their death and resurrection? Do they possess souls, or are they merely animate collections of memories and programmed responses? When they die and are resurrected again, is the consciousness that returns the same one that left? Or is each resurrection creating a new being that merely thinks it's continuous with the previous incarnation? These are not merely philosophical puzzles. They have practical implications for the Imperium's understanding of how the warp interacts with physical reality. If the Revenants possess souls, where do those souls go when the body dies? Do they enter the warp as normal, only to be dragged back to the physical realm during resurrection? Are they trapped in a cycle of perpetual departure and return, denied the rest that normal death should bring? Or worse, are the revenant souls consumed during the resurrection process, used as fuel for the forbidden technology, leaving behind only soulless automata wearing the faces and carrying the memories of the fallen? This last possibility is perhaps the most horrifying, for it suggests that the Iron Hands did not save their brothers from death, but rather desecrated their remains, creating puppets that think they are people, but are actually nothing more than sophisticated programs running on dead tissue. The Keys of Hel represent forbidden knowledge of a very specific type, technology that works, that produces measurable results, but that should never be used regardless of its effectiveness. It is one thing to forbid knowledge that leads to corruption by chaos, for that corruption represents a genuine spiritual threat. It is quite another to forbid knowledge because using it transforms the user into something monstrous, even if that monster fights for the Emperor. The Iron Hands have never officially acknowledged their use of forbidden resurrection technology. The existence of revenants is not discussed in imperial records, is not taught in the histories of the Horus heresy. If questioned, the chapter would likely deny everything, or claim that any reports of resurrected warriors were either propaganda or misidentification of heavily augmented but still living space marines. But in the deepest archives of the Inquisition, in vaults that only the most trusted servants of the Emperor can access, there are reports, classified accounts of Iron Hands warriors who fought with suicidal abandon, sustained injuries that should have been fatal, and returned to battle days later with no apparent memory of their deaths. Examination of recovered power armor that bore damage consistent with lethal wounds, yet whose wearer was later confirmed to be alive and active. The Inquisition knows. They have always known. But like so many other secrets in the Imperium, this knowledge is suppressed not because the truth would hurt the Emperor's cause, but because it raises questions that have no good answers. If the Iron Hands can resurrect the dead, why not expand the program to other chapters? Why not create entire armies of revenants who can die and return to battle indefinitely? The military advantages would be immense, the strategic implications staggering. The answer, of course, is that some lines should not be crossed, some technologies should not be used, regardless of the benefits they might provide. The revenants are abominations, violations of natural law that exist in a state fundamentally incompatible with any reasonable definition of life. To normalize their existence, to make resurrection through technology into a standard practice, would be to fundamentally change what it means to be human or Astartes, to transform the Imperium's warriors into something that might win battles, but would no longer be worth fighting for. And yet, the Keys of Hel still exist. The knowledge has not been destroyed, but merely sealed. The techniques that created the revenants are preserved in the Iron Hands' most restricted archives, waiting for another moment of desperation, another crisis, where the temptation to use forbidden technology becomes overwhelming. The Imperium learned during the Horus heresy that such moments always come eventually. The only question is whether those facing the crisis will have the wisdom to leave the Keys of Hel turned, to let sleeping horrors lie, rather than awakening them in a misguided attempt to gain advantage. The story of the Keys of Hel is a warning about the dangers of pragmatic thinking unbounded by ethical considerations. It demonstrates that not all forbidden knowledge is forbidden because it's false or because it leads to corruption. Sometimes knowledge is forbidden because it works too well, because it offers solutions that no moral being should ever implement, because the price of using it is the transformation of the user into something monstrous. And it reminds us that in the grim darkness of the far future, where there is only war and the laughter of thirsting gods, even the Emperor's most loyal servants can be driven to commit acts of such profound wrongness that 10,000 years later, the Imperium still cannot acknowledge their existence. The Book of Magnus, the tome that changes reality. Among all the forbidden texts in the galaxy, few are as simultaneously powerful and dangerous as the Book of Magnus. This tome, created by the Primarch Magnus the Red during the latter years of the Great Crusade, represents the collected psychic knowledge of one of the most powerful sorcerers in human history. Unlike most grimoires, which remain static once written, the Book of Magnus actively changes, growing and mutating as Magnus himself learns new secrets and develops new powers. The book's creation began when Magnus started collecting lore during his travels with the Thousand Sons Legion. Sensitive to psychic power in ways that other Primarchs could only dimly comprehend, Magnus drew on forbidden knowledge from multiple sources. He studied the writings of destroyed human cults, those eccentric mystics and psychic traditions that the Imperial truth condemned as superstition. He examined the eldritch remnants found in Xenos ruins on planets scoured for Imperial reclamation, artifacts and texts left behind by alien civilizations that had trafficked with the warp. From all these sources, Magnus distilled something unprecedented, a comprehensive codex of psychic powers and techniques unknown to the librarians of other Space Marine legions. The book contained spells and rituals that went far beyond what the Emperor's carefully controlled psychic training permitted. It detailed methods of divination that could pierce the veils of time, of telekinesis powerful enough to reshape continents, of telepathic assaults that could shatter the minds of entire populations. Before the Horus Heresy, the book was entrusted to Azek Ahriman, chief librarian of the Thousand Sons, and second only to Magnus himself in sorcerous power. Ahriman guarded the book faithfully, but he also studied it intensely, seeking within its pages the knowledge that might save his legion from the flesh change, the terrible mutation that periodically racked the Thousand Sons and transformed them into mindless spawn. When Magnus ascended to demonhood and the flesh change began consuming the legion wholesale, Ahriman delved deep into the Book of Magnus, convinced it held the key to salvation. Using the labyrinthine collections of formulae, incantations, and rites detailed in its pages, Ahriman devised what he believed would be the ultimate solution: the Rubric of Ahriman, a spell so powerful it would permanently stabilize the Legion's gene seed and end the flesh change forever. We know how that turned out. The Rubric did stop the flesh change, but at a terrible cost. Most of the Thousand Sons were reduced to nothing but animated suits of armor, their souls trapped in dust that filled the space where their bodies once existed. Only the psychically gifted sorcerers retained their physical forms, and even they were fundamentally changed by the experience. Magnus was enraged by what Ahriman had done, though the reasons for his anger remain debated. Some say he was furious that Ahriman had changed the Legion without permission. Others claim Magnus had foreseen that the Rubric would fail to truly solve anything. Since that fateful day, the Book of Magnus has become unbound by physical laws. The words written on its pages crawl and shift as though alive, changing constantly in shape and size. Some scholars believe the book expands to accommodate Magnus's ever-widening knowledge as he continues to learn in the service of Tzeentch. Others hold that when Magnus pledged himself to the Changer of Ways, the book gained a wholly separate self-awareness, and its perpetual mutations are born of subservience to Tzeentch rather than connection to its creator. Regardless of the cause, looking upon the book's pages is now an act of extraordinary danger. To read from the Book of Magnus is to invite madness into the mortal mind. The text does not simply convey information. It forces understanding upon the reader whether they can withstand that understanding or not. A human who opened the book and attempted to read it would likely suffer immediate psychic trauma, their mind overwhelmed by knowledge it was never meant to contain. Even a Space Marine librarian would be at risk, for the book contains truths about the warp that can shatter carefully constructed mental defenses. What makes the Book of Magnus particularly dangerous is that it represents accumulated knowledge from across the galaxy's history. The destroyed human cults Magnus studied had their own traditions of psychic development, some of which may have predated the Age of Strife. The Xenos ruins he explored contained insights from species that mastered the warp in ways humanity never has. And Magnus's own genius, combined with his millennia of service to Tzeentch, has added layer upon layer of forbidden wisdom to the original text. The book is believed to manifest in multiple copies throughout the galaxy. The original rests in Magnus's tower on Sortiarius, the planet of the sorcerers, born by the Crimson King when he strides to war. Ahriman also possesses a copy, taken with him when he was exiled from Sortiarius after the rubric's catastrophic effects became clear. And there are rumors of other copies, fragments or echoes of the book appearing in various locations throughout the galaxy, sometimes in the most unlikely of places. The Aeldari Black Library contains a copy, secured behind some of their most powerful wards. This represents perhaps the ultimate irony. The greatest repository of knowledge about chaos safeguards a human text that rivals anything in the Aeldari's own collection. The very fact that the Harlequins deemed the Book of Magnus worthy of preservation in the Black Library speaks to its significance and danger. Within the book's ever-shifting pages lie specific categories of forbidden knowledge. There are rituals for summoning demons of all 4 chaos gods, along with techniques for binding them that go far beyond what most demonologists would dare attempt. There are spells for manipulating time itself, allowing the caster to glimpse possible futures, or even reach back to affect past events in subtle ways. There are methods of astral projection so advanced that the practitioner can manifest their consciousness across the galaxy, appearing as a psychic ghost, capable of interaction with physical reality. Perhaps most dangerous of all, the book contains true names, not just the names of individual demons, which are dangerous enough, but the true names of concepts, of emotions, of fundamental forces in the warp. To speak these names with proper knowledge and power is to command reality itself, to reshape the immaterial realm through the simple act of naming. But to speak them incorrectly, or to speak them without the necessary psychic strength to withstand their power, is to invite catastrophic backlash that could destroy the speaker's mind and soul. The book also contains Magnus's theories about the nature of the Emperor and the true purpose of the Primarchs. These theories were formed before Magnus knew about the Webway Project, before he understood the full scope of his father's plans. But they demonstrate an understanding of the Emperor's nature that few other Primarchs achieved. Magnus recognized earlier than most that the Emperor was not simply a powerful psyker, but something fundamentally different, something that had accumulated power and knowledge over tens of thousands of years. Some of Magnus's writings suggest he suspected the Emperor might be a Gestalt entity, a fusion of multiple powerful psykers from ancient human history. Other passages hint that Magnus believed the Emperor had made bargains with entities in the warp, drawing on their power while believing he could control them. Still other sections contain Magnus's attempts to understand the genetic engineering that created the Primarchs, his analysis of his own biology and psychic structure, his theories about what each Primarch was specifically designed to accomplish. These insights are themselves forbidden knowledge, for they demystify the Emperor and the Primarchs, treating them as objects of study rather than divine figures to be worshipped, or, at minimum, revered as fundamentally superior to normal humans. In the 41st millennium, where the Emperor is worshipped as the God Emperor of mankind, Magnus's clinical analysis of his father's nature would be considered the blackest heresy. The Book of Magnus has been used as the basis for countless lesser grimoires. Chaos sorcerers, who have glimpsed even fragments of its pages, have attempted to recreate its spells and rituals, often with catastrophic results. Without Magnus's full understanding, without his raw psychic power to anchor the techniques, these derivative texts become corrupted versions of the original, dangerous not because they work too well, but because they work imperfectly, producing results the caster cannot predict or control. There are reports from across the Imperium of psychic phenomena that suggest someone has accessed knowledge from the Book of Magnus, a planet where the sun suddenly changes color, its light taking on a purple hue that drives everyone who sees it slowly insane. A hive world where all the citizens simultaneously experience a vision of their own deaths, and within weeks, those visions begin coming true. a Space Marine chapter, whose librarians develop new psychic disciplines that allow them unprecedented power, only to discover that these disciplines are slowly transforming them into something no longer entirely human. Each of these incidents, when investigated by the Inquisition, reveals traces of techniques described in the Book of Magnus. But by the time the Inquisition arrives, the source of the knowledge has usually vanished or been destroyed. It's as if the book leaves fragments of itself scattered throughout reality, psychic echoes that can be accessed by those with sufficient power and recklessness, and then disappears before it can be contained. The most disturbing aspect of the Book of Magnus is that it represents genuine understanding. This is not the ravings of a madman or the lies of demons trying to corrupt the unwary. Magnus the Red was, before his fall, perhaps the most intellectually brilliant of all the Primarchs. His analysis of psychic phenomena is rigorous and scientific in approach, even when discussing concepts that seem fundamentally mystical. The book works. Its rituals function as described. Its theories about the warp can be tested and verified. This means that anyone who gains access to the book gains access to working psychic technology, spells, and rituals that genuinely accomplish what they claim. Unlike the half-understood scraps that most chaos sorcerers piece together through trial and error, the Book of Magnus provides comprehensive instruction written by someone who understood exactly what he was doing and why. In the wrong hands, this knowledge could allow someone to become one of the most dangerous psychers in the galaxy. With the book as a guide, a sufficiently talented individual could master techniques that took Magnus decades to develop, could avoid the mistakes that lesser sorcerers make, could potentially even rival the Primarch himself in psychic might. And all of this power would come at the cost of exposing oneself to the most concentrated collection of chaos-tainted knowledge in human history, short of speaking directly with the dark gods themselves. The Inquisition treats any rumor of the Book of Magnus with the utmost seriousness. Entire teams of specialized agents, often including Grey Knights and Sisters of Silence, are deployed to investigate reports of the book's manifestation. Their orders are simple: find the book, kill anyone who has read from it, and if possible, destroy the copy. But the book has proven remarkably difficult to destroy. Fire does not consume it. It simply vanishes when threatened, reappearing elsewhere. Psychic attacks meant to unbind its pages seem to strengthen it instead. Even trying to seal it away often results in the book's disappearance and subsequent reappearance in a new location. Some radical inquisitors have proposed that rather than destroying copies of the Book of Magnus, the Inquisition should study them, extract useful techniques that could be turned against chaos, use Magnus's own knowledge as a weapon. This proposal is always rejected, not because the logic is unsound, but because the risk is too great. Every inquisitor who has seriously studied the book has either died, gone insane, or disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The pattern is consistent enough that it's become official policy. The Book of Magnus cannot be safely studied, and attempting to do so invariably leads to disaster. Yet the book endures. It cannot be destroyed, cannot be fully contained, cannot be studied without risk of corruption or death. It exists as a permanent scar on reality, a testament to Magnus's genius and his damnation, a reminder that even the most brilliant mind can become a tool for chaos if it seeks knowledge without wisdom, power without restraint, understanding without ethical boundaries. And somewhere, on the planet of the sorcerers, Magnus the Red continues to add to his masterwork, inscribing new secrets on pages that shift and change with every word. The book grows larger with each passing year, accumulating knowledge that should never have been written down, preserving techniques that should have died with their creator. It is perhaps the ultimate forbidden text, a living grimoire that embodies everything dangerous about the pursuit of psychic knowledge in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Why knowledge must remain forbidden? The price of understanding. Throughout this exploration of forbidden knowledge in Warhammer 40,000, A pattern has emerged. From the Black Library to the Men of Iron, from the Lost Primarchs to the Webway Project, from daemonology to the Book of Magnus, the same question arises again and again. Why should this knowledge be forbidden? What justifies the Imperium's ruthless suppression of information, its willingness to destroy entire worlds, rather than risk certain truths becoming known? The easy answer is that the Imperium is a repressive, totalitarian regime that fears an informed populace. This answer has truth to it. The Imperium absolutely does use enforced ignorance as a tool of control, keeping its citizens in darkness about the true nature of the threats they face, the history of their own civilization, and the alternatives that might exist to the current order. The Adeptus Ministorum, the Inquisition, and countless other imperial institutions benefit from a population that knows only what they are told, believes only what they are taught, and never questions the system that grinds them beneath its heel. But in the case of truly forbidden knowledge, the suppression serves a deeper purpose. Because in Warhammer 40,000, unlike our own reality, knowledge itself can be a vector for corruption and destruction. This is not metaphor or exaggeration. Information itself can be toxic, carrying with it the taint of chaos in ways that no quarantine or protection can fully defend against. Consider what happens when someone learns a demon's true name. The knowledge enters their mind, and with it comes awareness of that demon's existence. The demon, in turn, becomes aware of the person who knows its name. A connection has been formed, a link that the demon can exploit. The person now appears as a bright beacon in the warp, drawing the demon's attention. And if the person is foolish enough to speak the name aloud, even in testing or experimentation, they risk summoning the demon or granting it power over them. This is the fundamental problem with forbidden knowledge in Warhammer 40,000. It is not merely information, but a living, active threat. To know is to be known. To study is to be studied. To understand chaos is to expose oneself to chaos, to create vulnerabilities that did not exist before the knowledge was acquired. The Imperium's suppression of knowledge about the Men of Iron serves a similar purpose. The technology exists. The understanding of how to create artificial intelligence has not truly been lost. But allowing that knowledge to spread would inevitably lead to someone, somewhere, attempting to recreate the Men of Iron. They would convince themselves that they could do it better, that they could avoid the mistakes that led to the cybernetic revolt, that their AI would remain loyal where the previous generation turned traitor. And they would probably be wrong. The warp has become far more turbulent since the dark age of technology. An AI created in the 41st millennium would emerge into a galaxy saturated with chaos energy, where demonic entities constantly probe for weaknesses, where the barrier between real space and the immaterium grows thinner by the decade. The chances of such an AI remaining uncorrupted are effectively zero. By forbidding research into artificial intelligence, by destroying all knowledge of how to create thinking machines, the Imperium prevents anyone from making this catastrophic mistake. The suppression of knowledge about the Lost Primarchs serves a different function. Here, the concern is not corruption or technological disaster, but rather political stability. Whatever the 2nd and 11th Primarchs did, it was so threatening to the Emperor's authority, or his vision for humanity, that he deemed their very existence to be incompatible with the Imperium's survival. By erasing them from history, by making it literally impossible to discuss what they did or what they represented, the Emperor ensured that no one could follow their example or be inspired by their rebellion. This represents perhaps the most cynical form of knowledge suppression, the elimination of alternatives. In a galaxy where the Imperium is presented as humanity's only hope, where the Emperor's way is taught as the only possible path to survival, the very concept that there were once other options, other visions for humanity's future, becomes dangerous. Better to erase those alternatives completely than to risk someone learning about them and deciding that perhaps the Emperor was not infallible. that perhaps his way is not the only way. The secrecy surrounding the Webway Project and the Imperial Truth demonstrates how forbidden knowledge can become a weapon in the hands of enemies. By keeping his plans secret, even from his own sons, the Emperor left them vulnerable to manipulation by chaos. But if he had revealed the truth, if he had explained that gods and demons were real and that his goal was to starve them by denying them worship, he would have been admitting that the Imperial Truth was a lie. This admission might have undermined the Imperial Truth's effectiveness, might have made it easier for chaos to corrupt those who learned the real nature of the warp. The Emperor faced an impossible dilemma: tell the truth and risk weakening the philosophical defense he had constructed against chaos, or maintain the lie and risk leaving his sons vulnerable to corruption through ignorance. He chose the latter, and the Horus heresy was the result. But would the alternative have been better? If the Primarchs had known about chaos from the beginning, would that knowledge have protected them or simply made them targets earlier? We can never know, but the fact that the question has no clear answer demonstrates the complexity of deciding what knowledge should be shared and what should be suppressed. Daemonology represents the clearest case for knowledge suppression. The rituals work. The techniques are effective. The information is accurate. But possessing that information makes one a target for chaos, draws the attention of entities that are always seeking new servants. Every person who learns daemonology becomes a potential vector for corruption, a weak point in the Imperium's defenses. The knowledge is necessary for fighting demons, but it is also dangerous to those who possess it. The solution the Imperium has developed, allowing only the Ordo Malleus and the Grey Knights to study daemonology while forbidding it to everyone else, represents a pragmatic compromise. The knowledge exists where it is needed, but is kept from spreading to those who lack the protection or discipline to handle it safely. But this compromise is imperfect. Even the Grey Knights, with all their safeguards and conditioning, are not immune to corruption. The danger inherent in daemonological knowledge cannot be eliminated, only managed. The Keys of Hel and the Book of Magnus demonstrate yet another category of forbidden knowledge: information that works too well, that offers power without adequate understanding of the consequences. The Iron Hand's use of cybernetic resurrection produced warriors who could return from death, but at the cost of creating abominations that violated natural law. Magnus's grimoire contains techniques of immense psychic power, but using them without his level of skill and understanding leads to catastrophic results. In both cases, the knowledge itself is not false or corrupt. It is simply too dangerous for anyone lacking the wisdom to use it properly. The Iron Hands should have understood that resurrection through forbidden technology would create monsters. Magnus should have recognized that his techniques were too advanced for others to safely replicate. But grief clouded the judgment of the Iron Hands, and pride clouded Magnus's understanding of his own limitations and the dangers he was recording for posterity. This raises perhaps the most important question about forbidden knowledge in Warhammer 40,000. Who decides what should be forbidden, and on what basis? In our reality, the suppression of knowledge is almost always a bad thing, a tool of tyranny used to keep people ignorant and compliant. But in the Warhammer universe, where knowledge genuinely can corrupt, where understanding certain truths creates vulnerabilities that did not exist before, where some technologies should never be used regardless of their effectiveness, the calculus changes. The Imperium's approach is blunt and often brutal. Any knowledge that seems dangerous is suppressed. Any text that might contain heretical information is burned. Any person who possesses forbidden understanding is executed. This creates a civilization where innovation has stagnated, where technology is treated as holy relics rather than tools, where progress has been replaced by endless repetition of ancient forms that no one fully understands anymore. But the alternative, allowing knowledge to spread freely, would almost certainly be worse in the context of Warhammer 40,000. A single person learning how to summon demons could doom an entire world. A tech priest experimenting with artificial intelligence could trigger a second cybernetic revolt. A psyker studying the wrong grimoire could become a gateway for demonic incursion. In a universe where information itself is dangerous, where understanding can lead to damnation, the free exchange of ideas becomes a suicide pact. This creates a tragic situation where the Imperium's oppressiveness serves a genuine defensive purpose. The censorship is not merely about control, but about survival. The enforced ignorance is not just tyranny, but a quarantine against mimetic hazards that are literally real. The suppression of knowledge has costs, terrible costs, in terms of lost potential and technological regression. But those costs may be necessary in a galaxy where the alternative is corruption and death. Yet even accepting this logic, we must acknowledge that the Imperium often goes too far. Not all suppressed knowledge is genuinely dangerous. Some texts are burned simply because they question imperial orthodoxy, not because they contain actual threats. Some technologies are forbidden, not because they are inherently corrupting, but because they would undermine the power of the tech priests who control them. Some secrets are kept, not to protect humanity, but to protect the reputation and authority of those in power. The tragedy of the Imperium is that its legitimate need to suppress genuinely dangerous knowledge has metastasized into a general suppression of all knowledge that does not serve the interests of the regime. The same institutions that must keep daemonological texts from spreading also suppress scientific treatises that merely suggest the universe might be older than imperial doctrine claims. The same logic that justifies hiding the truth about the Lost Primarchs is used to justify hiding the failures and mistakes of current imperial leadership. This conflation of legitimate security, concerns with simple authoritarian control, creates a civilization that cannot distinguish between knowledge that is dangerous because it is corrupting and knowledge that is dangerous only to the powerful. The result is stagnation, a species that should be advancing, but instead treads water, maintaining the status quo through sheer bloody-minded determination, while slowly losing ground to enemies who are not bound by the same restrictions. The Tau, for instance, advanced technologically at a rate that should be impossible in the Warhammer universe, developing new weapons and tactics within generations rather than millennia. They achieve this partly because they are not constrained by the Imperium's technophobia, not limited by the cult Mechanicus's insistence that innovation is heresy. But the Tau also lack psychers, which means they are not vulnerable to chaos corruption in the same way humanity is. Their freedom to pursue knowledge does not come with the same risks that plague the Imperium. This suggests that the Imperium's situation is unique, that the suppression of knowledge serves a purpose for humanity, specifically because of humanity's relationship with the warp. Other species can pursue understanding with less risk of corruption. Other civilizations can advance technologically without courting the dangers that knowledge brings to human psyches. But for humanity, trapped between the predations of chaos and the physical threats of a hostile galaxy, knowledge itself has become a weapon that can be turned against them. The ultimate question, then, is whether the Imperium's approach to forbidden knowledge represents the least bad option in an impossible situation, or whether there might be better ways to manage dangerous information without condemning humanity to eternal stagnation. Could the Imperium create systems for safely studying chaos without exposing researchers to corruption? Could they preserve technological knowledge while still forbidding the creation of artificial intelligence? Could they be honest about their history, including the failures and mistakes, without undermining the faith that holds their civilization together? The answer may be no. The grim darkness of the far future may be a situation where all choices are bad, where every option comes with unacceptable costs, where survival requires sacrifices that make the survivors question whether survival is worth the price. The Imperium's suppression of knowledge may be the best they can do in circumstances that offer no good solutions, only varying degrees of terrible ones. But it is worth remembering that the Imperium created many of these circumstances through their own choices. The Emperor's secrecy led directly to the Horus heresy. The prohibition against AI research has left humanity dependent on servitors and tech priests who barely understand their own technology. The suppression of knowledge about chaos has made imperial citizens more vulnerable to corruption, not less, because they cannot recognize the signs of taint when they appear. In trying to protect humanity through enforced ignorance, the Imperium has often achieved the opposite of its stated goals. The forbidden knowledge remains, hidden but not destroyed, waiting for someone desperate or foolish enough to seek it out. And when they do find it, when they break the seals and read the texts and learn the truths that have been hidden for millennia, they are woefully unprepared for what they discover, because the Imperium has given them no framework for understanding it safely. This is the final tragedy of forbidden knowledge in Warhammer 40,000. The suppression does not eliminate the danger. It merely ensures that when people encounter dangerous knowledge, they do so without guidance, without preparation, without the context necessary to handle it responsibly. The Imperium has created a situation where ignorance is mandated, but knowledge still exists, where citizens are kept in darkness, but the darkness is full of threats they cannot recognize because they have never been taught what to look for. And so the cycle continues. Forbidden knowledge is discovered, disaster follows. The Inquisition responds with fire and purging, and the knowledge is suppressed once again, hidden away until the next desperate soul goes looking for answers the Imperium refuses to provide. Thousands of years of this cycle have produced a civilization that is simultaneously obsessed with maintaining ancient wisdom and terrified of what that wisdom contains, that venerates knowledge in the abstract while forbidding it in practice, that built an empire on the Emperor's quest for understanding and now enforces ignorance in his name. There may be no solution to this paradox. The Warhammer 40,000 universe may simply be a place where knowledge and survival are fundamentally incompatible, where understanding leads inevitably to corruption, where the only defense against the darkness is to close one's eyes and pray. In such a universe, the Imperium's approach to forbidden knowledge, brutal and oppressive as it is, might represent the closest thing to wisdom that humanity can achieve. But it is still a tragedy. Every text burned is knowledge lost forever. Every mind wiped is a potential thinker eliminated. Every world purged for possessing forbidden information is a billion lives sacrificed to maintain a system that cannot distinguish between genuine threats and inconvenient truths. The price of survival in the Imperium is measured not just in lives, but in potential, in all the things humanity might have become if they were free to pursue knowledge without fear of damnation. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And in that eternal war, knowledge has become just another battlefield, contested by forces that seek to preserve it and forces that seek to destroy it, while the vast majority of humanity remains ignorant of what they have lost and what they are still losing every single day. Conclusion: the burden of terrible truth. We have journeyed through some of the darkest corners of Warhammer 40,000 lore, exploring knowledge so dangerous that the Imperium would sooner destroy worlds than allow it to spread. From the Black Library's repository of chaos lore to the Men of Iron's devastating legacy, from the mystery of the Lost Primarchs to the Emperor's failed Webway Project, from the corrupting power of daemonology to the technological abominations sealed by the Keys of Hel, from the Book of Magnus to the hidden truths of the Horus heresy itself, we have examined why knowledge in the 41st millennium is not simply power, but a potential poison that can corrupt, damn, and destroy those who possess it. The Imperium of Man stands as perhaps the greatest monument to willful ignorance in fiction. Here is a civilization that possesses fragments of technologies that could reshape the galaxy, that maintains archives containing the accumulated wisdom of millions of years of human history, that has access to individuals with the psychic power to read minds and see the future. and yet operates in a state of enforced darkness, where curiosity is heresy and understanding is a path to damnation. But as we have seen, this ignorance is not entirely unjustified. In a universe where demons are real, where thoughts have power, where knowledge itself can serve as a vector for corruption, the free exchange of information becomes genuinely dangerous. A curious scholar reading the wrong text might inadvertently summon a demon. A tech priest experimenting with forbidden technology might create an artificial intelligence that destroys their forge world. A space marine learning about the Lost Primarchs might be inspired to repeat their mistakes, whatever those mistakes were. The burden of terrible truth falls most heavily on those few who must know the forbidden to protect everyone else. The Inquisitors who study daemonology so they can fight demons. The Grey Knights who memorize true names so they can banish warp entities. The Chapter Masters who preserve fragments of history so that past mistakes are not completely forgotten. The tech priests who maintain technologies they barely understand, keeping ancient machines functioning through ritual and prayer, because true understanding has been lost. These individuals carry knowledge that would drive most people insane or corrupt them utterly. They bear witness to truths that the Imperium has spent 10,000 years suppressing. They understand that the Emperor was not infallible, that the Imperium is built on lies and compromises, that the current age is a pale shadow of what humanity once achieved and what it might have become. And they must keep this knowledge to themselves, must continue serving an institution built on falsehoods, because the alternative is the collapse of the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. This is perhaps the ultimate forbidden knowledge in Warhammer 40,000. The understanding that the Imperium cannot be saved, that the slow decline cannot be reversed, that humanity is fighting a losing battle against entropy and chaos. The Emperor sits rotting on the Golden Throne, barely able to maintain the psychic beacon that makes interstellar travel possible. The Astronomicon grows weaker by the century. The tech priests lose more knowledge than they gain with each passing generation. The Imperium's enemies grow stronger, while its resources are stretched ever thinner. And there is no solution on the horizon, no hope of recovery, only the grim determination to fight on until the final, inevitable defeat. Those who understand this truth face a choice: despair and abandon the fight, or continue serving despite knowing that victory is impossible, that all their efforts will ultimately fail, that they are merely delaying the inevitable. Most choose to keep fighting, not because they believe they can win, but because the alternative is to surrender to darkness immediately rather than gradually. They fight to buy humanity more time, to preserve the species for a few more generations, to ensure that when the end comes, it comes to a humanity that went down fighting rather than one that gave up and accepted its fate. This knowledge, more than any grimoire or forbidden technology, is what truly breaks those who possess it. Not the technical details of how to summon demons or resurrect the dead, but the existential understanding that it is all ultimately futile, that the Emperor's grand vision failed, that humanity's golden age is gone forever, that the future holds only darkness and war until even those fade into the final silence. And yet, from another perspective, this might be the most important knowledge of all. Because it is only by understanding the full scope of the threat, only by recognizing how desperate humanity's situation truly is, that one can appreciate why the Imperium must make the terrible choices it makes. The suppression of knowledge, the enforcement of ignorance, the willingness to sacrifice billions to prevent forbidden information from spreading. These are not the actions of tyrants seeking power, but the desperate measures of defenders who understand that they are holding back the tide with their bare hands, and that the moment they let go, the flood will sweep everything away. So if you ever wonder why the Imperium burns libraries and mind wipes witnesses, and destroys entire worlds rather than risk certain knowledge spreading, remember what we have discussed today. Remember that in Warhammer 40,000, knowledge is not merely power, but a weapon that can be turned against the knower, a poison that can corrupt the soul, a gateway through which demons can reach into reality. Remember that some truths are too terrible to be widely known, that some technologies should never be used regardless of the benefits they might provide, that some questions are better left unasked because the answers would break those who learned them. The Imperium of Man is a monument to the proposition that ignorance can be a form of defense, that sometimes the price of knowledge is too high, that there are worse things than being kept in the dark. Whether this proposition is true in our reality is debatable, but in the grim darkness of the far future, where there is only war and the laughter of thirsting gods, it may be the closest thing to wisdom that humanity can achieve. We have explored the most forbidden knowledge in Warhammer 40,000, and in doing so, we have learned why it must remain forbidden. Not because the Imperium fears an educated populace, though it certainly does. Not because those in power wish to maintain their privilege, though they certainly do that as well. But because in a universe where knowledge itself is dangerous, where understanding can lead to damnation, where some truths are genuinely toxic to those who learn them, the suppression of information becomes a form of quarantine, a necessary evil in a galaxy that offers few good options and many terrible ones. This is the final lesson of forbidden knowledge in Warhammer 40,000, that there are some things humanity was not meant to know, that there are mysteries better left unsolved, that there is knowledge whose price is too high even when measured against the cost of ignorance, the keen. Emperor understood this when he crafted the imperial truth as a lie to fight a greater evil. The Inquisition understands it when they burn heretical texts rather than studying them. The Mechanicus understands it when they treat technology as sacred mystery rather than subject it to scientific inquiry. And now you understand it too, as much as anyone can who has not walked the paths we have explored today, who has not glimpsed the terrible truths that lie hidden in the darkest corners of the Imperium's vaults. You have been given a glimpse of the forbidden, a taste of knowledge that most Imperial citizens will never encounter. Consider yourself warned, consider yourself educated, and consider whether that education has made you wiser or simply burdened you with understanding you cannot fully use. In the final analysis, perhaps that is the true nature of forbidden knowledge. Not that it is false or evil, but simply that it is too heavy a burden for most to bear, too dangerous a weapon for most to wield safely, too corrupting an influence for most to resist. And in a galaxy where the enemies of humanity are always seeking new weaknesses to exploit, where a single mistake can doom worlds, where the margin between survival and extinction grows narrower with each passing year, maybe the Imperium is right to lock away its most terrible secrets and throw away the key. Or maybe they are wrong, and the suppression of knowledge is slowly strangling humanity's potential, condemning the species to stagnation and decline when they might have found salvation through understanding. We may never know the answer, but we do know that in the grim darkness of the far future, ignorance and knowledge are both forms of danger, and there is no safe path through the darkness, only choices between different kinds of risk. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the forbidden archives of Warhammer 40,000. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the lore's darkest corners, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations of the grim darkness of the far future. And remember, some knowledge is forbidden for good reason. In the Imperium of Man, curiosity does not just kill the cat, it damns its soul to eternal torment in the warp. Until next time, stay vigilant against heresy, trust in the Emperor's light, and whatever you do, do not go looking for the books we have discussed today. The Inquisition is watching, and some questions are better left unasked. The Emperor protects, but knowledge corrupts. And in the end, the only true safety lies in the blessed ignorance that the Imperium works so hard to maintain.